we can have everyone's attention, please. If you can take out your cell phones, handheld personal devices, iPhones, Samsung, they have to be powered down. They can't be on vibrate, silent, or any other mode other than powered down. It interferes with the broadcast. If you are speaking this evening, we ask that you please direct your questions, comments, and any issues to the board directly. If you need to speak to one another, please take it in the hallway. It interferes with our opportunity to hear those who are speaking. And as always, we're going to be courteous and respectful for everyone's decision and discussion with this evening. Due to time restraints, specifically about multiple applications, we're going to implement the 3-minute rule for this evening. It's something that we have, that the town does, as well as the village. It will be implemented this evening, so there will be a 3-minute discussion rule for people who are coming up to discuss anything with regards to any pending applications before the board. So we're going to start this evening with a motion to approve. Open to open. Motion to open, please.
I make a motion that we open this meeting of the Board of Architecture Review and Historic Preservation for May 22nd, 2017.
I second the
Been
motion.
moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Welcome to the May 22nd, 2017 meeting of the Architectural Board of Review and Historic Preservation. My name is Curtis Highsmith, and I'm your chair. I'd like to introduce our panel for this evening. Unfortunately, we do not have Brian Brady this evening, but we do have Christina Redding, Susan Stevenson, as well as Jeff Rodley. We don't have legal counsel Bo Robinson, but we do have our historic consultant, Zach Studenroth, and replacing Antoinette this evening, we have Candace. We thank you for being here as well. We're going to start this evening's meeting with signs, and first application, please, for signs.
Our first sign is Patrick Falls.
Is the applicant present, please? The applicant present. Okay, motion to
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Make a motion that we adjourn the application, the sign application of Patrick's Falls.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next application, please.
Mariana Montes Dioca. Sorry, how do I?
Do you pronounce it?
Yeah, Montes de Oca.
Monte Dioca.
Thank you.
Just for purposes of understanding for everyone, you can either go to the podium and speak, or you can go right here in the front. If you are presenting any files, any type of drawings, please set them flat so the broadcast can see them too. So, your name again?
Mariana Montes de Oca.
Oh,
I
if you
think
place
you have
that
it,
right
but
down there.
okay.
All right, so that's what you're presenting. It's a black pillars, black sign, white lettering, correct?
Yes.
Name of the company as well as a telephone number.
Mariana Montes de Oca Design,
Okay.
and it's 631-637-0016.
Okay, this is a contractor sign going on a house that you're developing or building?
Yes.
So it'll be a temporary sign, will be removed once the
Oh,
house is
yes.
built. Any questions, Christine?
No, I think it's lovely.
Thank you.
Fine. Jeff? It's beautiful. Any public comments on the application?
Gorgeous.
Motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the contractor sign for Mariana Montes Dioca.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good luck. Next application, please.
Is Southampton Inn Claude's on Hill Street.
Dee Dee Gotthelf for the Southampton Inn, 91 Hill Street and 71 Hill Street in Southampton.
Okay. Hey, Dee Dee, how are you?
Hello, Curtis. I'm fine, thank you. How are you and everybody?
Doing well. This is going to be a sign put out in front of the facility, correct?
Well, it is. We have one in front of 91 and one in front of 71, and it was a rough winter, and they were beat up, so we're not, the one in front of 91, we painted and sort of didn't do anything with the sign other than painting, and the restaurant has a name change to Claude's for this season. And the one at 71, we're going to replace, if we're permitted, in like kind, just because it's elderly and some of the wood timbers are rotted, and it was a very wet, rough winter. But if there's something else I should do, by all means, I'm happy to.
Okay. Nothing backlit or anything we
No
should be worried about,
backlit.
concerned with, right?
No, they're wooden signs, which is why they got rotted in all this weather.
Like in kind, same design and color and rendering is what was there prior. You're just
Yes.
replacing the existing sign for. I have no issue with it. Christine?
No, fine.
Looks good.
Fine. Any public comment on the application?
And are we permitted to do, oh, what am I doing? Are we permitted this one on the other side, or do you need a
We're
separate
going to
application?
hold off and just look at this first.
Sure.
So for the sign, currently, the replacement of the pre-existing sign, just like in kind, so
That one was just painted.
there's no issue of the board, there was a motion on the table, there's no public comments. Motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the sign for 91 Hill Street at Southampton Inn.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then you had a replacement for the other side.
This is the 71 Hill sign. Again, we have, it's elderly. I'd like to replace exactly as it is, but to do it with new wood and a little, perhaps more cohesive lettering, but
My only question is, I don't have that application before us, that you present the application for the other sign? You did.
oh, I don't know. I'm just here because
Did you have an application, a separate one for that sign?
I don't know.
Okay.
If you don't have one, then I guess
We don't
that
have one.
answers it.
We don't have one in file.
So if we replace exactly the same thing, we need an application and
You
an
still need-
appearance.
Repairs.
Okay.
Well, if you're doing repairs, there's a difference. Are you doing repairs to the sign and just repairing what's tattered, broken, or are you actually doing an entire new sign, just a replica of what was existing prior?
Well, I was thinking of putting an entirely new sign up,
You would
but
have
if
to
we
file a new
can...
application. in
All right,
the
and if we
building
just repair what's there now, we can do that too, but it's 20, and it has rotted posts.
department. Repairs are repairs. If you're
Yeah.
replacing the sign, you would still have to come before us. Even
Okay.
though it's like in kind, the question is with regards to
Okay.
material that you'll be using, if there's going to be anything backlit,
Okay.
any lanterns or
right.
illumination to the sign, so.
I understand. Okay, so...
So that
for
application,
91,
you'll have to
We'll resubmit or we'll repair.
have to
Okay.
or not resubmit it, submit it. It was
This
never
one,
received.
okay.
Okay?
That's fine, yes.
All right, so you have approval for this, you're fine.
Great, thank you very much.
Be well.
Bye-bye.
Next application, please.
Eva J. at 53 George Lane.
I don't have a printout with me.
Okay.
This is, no, we have it here.
Okay.
This is for your storefront, it's going right above
Yes,
the...
it is.
What is the material that's being,
Painted black PVC.
okay, so it's PVC is painted black, white
Matte black.
background.
Just PVC, individual letters on a fascia, on a white fascia.
This is the correct font that's being
Yes, it is.
produced? Will there be any goose-down lanterns or anything? Nothing illuminating on the sign at all?
No.
Anything on the windows or doors with the name of the
Not that I
company?
know of yet.
Okay. Board members, do you have any questions about the
No.
sign?
Nope.
No, clean looking.
good. Any public comment on the sign? Motion to approve?
Make a motion that we approve the sign at 53 George Lane for Eva J.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next application, please.
Candied Anchor on Job's Lane.
How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Who is this?
Name for the record?
Wes Sokol. We submitted lights, a picture of the lights. You guys have it?
Okay. So you're going with the copper?
Yeah, we have a copper sign. We're going to do 2 of those above.
Okay. Are they going down to the ground, or are they being directed towards the sign itself,
They're going to be over the sign.
over the sign?
Yep.
So it will project, but it won't project necessarily directly on the sign?
No,
It's projecting
just
down to the ground?
over the top, yeah.
Very good. You know what the wattage is that's being projected?
I don't. Probably should.
You want to propose one and be part of the application as approval?
I just don't know enough about electric to say exactly what the wattage would be.
40 or 60 watt bulb? What kind of?
40.
Okay. 2 40-watt bulbs and a 40-watt bulb for each fixture? Is that it?
Is that what you're
Yes.
proposing?
Yep.
Okay. And the sign is already up, it's just the lanterns?
It's not up yet.
Okay,
We
so you're
approved the
proposing?
sign.
You already approved the
We
sign.
approved the sign.
Yeah.
We just want to make sure everyone understands that the sign is a prior application. This is just for the lanterns.
Yes.
Very good. Board members, any questions about the lanterns?
None about the lantern. Is it the candy store?
Yeah.
Any questions about the application? Motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the application for the storefront lighting for the Candied Anchor.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next application, please.
Thank you.
Il Sandalo on Main Street.
Any special from Hampton Signs again? And the mounted letters, black painted.
Okay. Above, there's a sign, same thing PVC, or will it be another
I think there
material?
might be acrylic on those.
Is it, or you
It's
think, or
acrylic, it's
it's
acrylic.
acrylic? So it's black lettering. This is the correct font. It's on the board. It actually was signed off by code enforcement, so the sign is in order. Will there be decals on the windows itself?
Yes, the separate application for that.
Okay, so the decals are a different name than the organization that's being presented?
One's a brand that they carry.
So it's an advertisement, not necessarily the name of the company on the window?
I guess you could look at it that way, yeah.
Name of the maker.
Name of the maker, right.
And then underneath you have
The
Palm Beach
towns,
and
right, that
Malibu.
they have their other stores, which is common throughout the village.
I'm just
Yeah,
making
I'm just-
reference to
yeah.
what we're looking at. All right, no telephone numbers, no websites.
Nothing.
Ask the board if they have any issues about an advertisement on the window. I know it's a brand, but it's not necessarily a fixture of what the organization's name is.
Right.
It's just the brand that they represent.
We just felt that the sign itself was so small that just a little bit of a brand wouldn't make a difference, having a little bit of branding on there because their sign is tiny.
Okay. Not something we've done in the past.
Okay,
See
okay,
how the board feels overall.
okay.
And typically, it's the name of the company, maybe a telephone number, but not usually specifications of what you're selling or providing.
Oh, I understand, we're just,
So Christine, do you have any questions or issues with it? You'd have no
I
issues?
have no objection.
Jeff, you have any issues?
Fine.
All right. No objections of the board?
Great.
Any questions, objections of the public? No comments? Motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the sign, storefront and window sign for Il Sandalo on Main Street.
Our second.
All in favor?
thank you very much.
Good luck. Okay. Next application, please.
Blaze, McCoy, Arch, and J. Bialski.
Did we see this? When did this show?
How you doing? Your name for the record, please?
Matthew LeBrake.
This is a contractor sign, two different organizations.
Sign on the table, please.
Do you have a copy that you could put down, sir?
Yeah.
Thank you. Other way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Contractor sign, two organizations. I'm assuming one is a design. They did the interior design or exterior design?
Architect on top
Yep.
and contractor below us.
Contractor below. So it's just on this particular parcel itself. They've came
Yes.
together to complete and facilitate this particular parcel. This will be done and finished and removed once the home is
Correct.
complete. Name of the company, location, just Bridgehampton being the location, and telephone number. Board members, do you have any issues of the sign? Contractor sign?
Fine.
Any public comment? Motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the combo sign for Blaze, McCoy, Arch, and J. Bialski.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good luck.
Thank you.
And our final sign application for this evening.
Northeast Masonry and Landscaping, a contract to sign.
Well, I actually brought the sign with me.
Good.
There you go.
Wilbur Morales, Northeast Masonry and Landscaping.
Okay. Just a little, I don't know if you heard earlier, we had some issues with regards to signs being a little bit too much of an advertisement. We typically request is the name of the company, telephone number, location, maybe even a website.
Okay.
You've basically put your resume on your sign.
All right.
We don't want a bunch of advertisement in the
All right.
village of Southampton.
Okay.
We understand what the nature of your company, your landscape company is part of your, and masonry, is part of your name of your corporation.
That's correct.
Having the remaining portions underneath typically starts to look a little billboardish.
Okay, I got it.
So we can tailor that down to remove maybe the taglines underneath showing the
Right here, this
construction
one right here?
masonry, landscaping,
All right.
correct?
Okay.
And just the name of the corporation, the address, even your website is fine.
How about
So pretty much just remove this line right here.
Yeah.
License and insured, do they need that? No.
I don't have any issue with licensed and insured. I just think that the advertisement is just a little over the top.
Okay, all right. I'll get rid of that.
Board members, you have any questions? Anything further to add? Jeff, anything
Yep,
further?
that's fine.
Susan?
No.
Okay. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Unfortunately, that has to be presented before this board.
Okay.
So you would have to come back with a rendering or some type of, or first you would have to come back with another drawing.
Okay.
Because, no, I want to see it. We've been crossing out a lot and it's not been done. So if you can come back with another sign, another illustration that shows that's been removed, and if you have another sign that will demonstrate that physically here.
Yeah, I'll make new ones. All right.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you so
You're asking
much.
an adjournment so you can prepare that?
I'm sorry?
You're going to look for an adjournment so you can prepare yourself for that,
All right,
correct?
will do. All right, thanks.
Any public comment before we move further? Motion to approve applicant's request to adjourn until our next meeting.
I make a motion that we approve the applicant Northeast Masonry and Landscaping request to adjourn to our next meeting.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just point of order, we're going to take care of all of the written decisions. There is one adjournment. However, the application for Southampton 24 LLC, both for 24 Gin Lane and 28, because of the proposed or nature of the time that's going to be spent in trying to work through the application, recommendation of the chair and looking for support of the board, that we move that to the end of the agenda and fulfill, basically complete the other applications prior to, and that way we can focus more interest into the application and give it the necessary attention it deserves. Would you agree?
Yes.
We all agree?
Yes.
We all agree. Okay. So for right now, we'll first, the first application for 116 North Sea Road, the applicant requests to adjourn until July 10th. Are we going to motion that the motion to approve the applicant's request to adjourn until July 10th, 2017?
I make a motion that we approve Hampton's HDS LLC on North Sea Road request to adjourn to our meeting on July 10th.
I second the motion.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, then we'll skip to written decision for 410 Ox Pasture Road. I have here before me a written decision prepared by council. The motion this evening will be a motion to approve written decision by council.
I make a motion that we approve the written decision by council for 410 Ox Pasture Road.
Second?
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board.
Do you want a copy?
I would love one.
I'm not really going to be hanging on to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Next is 405 Hill Street. Motion would be to approve written decision by council.
I make a motion that we approve the written decision by council to John and Marjorie Lewin at 405 Hill Street.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Would you like this?
Please. Have a good evening.
$250 Gin Lane, Southampton, SHLLC. Motion to approve written decision by council.
I make a motion that we approve the written decision by council for 250 Gin Lane.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Was there anyone here? No.
And 262 Captain's Neck Lane. Motion to approve written decision by council.
I make a motion that we approve the written decision by council for Kevin McNamara on Captain's Neck Lane.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
There's a letter in the file for 284 Hill Street requesting that it be adjourned. Is there a date that it requested? No date. So the request would be motion to approve request by applicant to adjourn until our next meeting.
I make a motion that we approve the applicant David Dove at 284 Hill Street request to adjourn to our next meeting.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Therefore, the next application would be 20 Wyandanch Lane. Paul? Order?
Oh,
Lawrence?
closer- oh, yes. That's the driveway gates.
Would you call the application to order? Public?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It's
20 Wyandanch Lane. Lawrence Friedland at 20 Wyandanch Lane.
I'm Gary Workman, I'm here as his agent from Walpole Outdoors.
Got driveway gates. The material that's being used,
It is AZAC, steel reinforced AZAC,
pillars are
same.
same. Any lanterns? Any?
No lanterns.
No lanterns.
I have a piece here if you want to take
You-
it.
Okay. Do you have the listed spacing between the lattice?
The pickets on top is on the drawings, yes.
Sorry?
The spacing on the pickets
Yes.
is on the top, yes. It's 4 7/16.
That's the open
opening,
space.
the actual-
Two of us had some trouble figuring out which was
Yeah,
open, which was
which
closed.
was the
Okay,
wooded,
great.
which was the
That's good to
opening.
know. Thank you.
So you were right.
I'm right about more than that.
So it's far greater than 50% transparency.
It's about, because it's filled in on the lower.
The lower portion, if you can just give us the detail in terms of the swoops. The lower portion is closed in and paneled,
Yes, it is.
no opening or spacing.
No, it's a V-groove, tongue and groove board.
However, the overall transparency of the driveway gates is approximately
It's slightly over 55%.
excellent. That's what we look for. Appreciate it. Any questions from the board?
No.
No problem.
Any comments by public? Although the application is just simply a driveway gate, property is located in the historic district and therefore requires written decision by council. So at this point, we'll close the application, and it will be pending written decision by our council, which we hope it will be at our next meeting. Do you have any questions? There we go.
Thank you.
Motion to close the application of 20 Wyandanch Lane for written decision by council.
I make a motion that we close the application for Lawrence Friedland at 20 Wyandanch Lane for written decision by our council.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next application, please.
Is William Serrata at 112 Elm.
Hi,
No. Your name for the record, please.
William Serrata.
That makes sense.
This is just an application for replacement of windows and doors.
Windows only.
Windows, not doors.
Yep, just windows.
Council, Zach, is this a contributing structure within the historic district?
Isn't replacing in
It's just, it's in kind.
Point of reference for the application. I want to know if it's a contributing structure for,
Afraid I can't answer that question. Chairman. The sashes are being replaced
Yeah,
with wooden.
wooden interior, aluminum clad exterior. Same light pattern.
Is that because they're thermally,
Yeah, I mean, combination of thermally inefficient and pretty.
well, I'm a
run down.
window person,
Yes.
but we don't have time this evening for the window lecture, so if it looks the same from the street, I think your board has traditionally approved that as long as it's
the only changes that you're making is just the windows, correct?
Yeah, just the windows.
aesthetics
yeah.
of it remain
Yeah.
unchanged.
Okay. And thank you for numbering the, and marking the exact location of the windows.
Each window
I
that's
really
being-
appreciate that. Makes life a lot easier for us to identify. Since it doesn't seem to be any opposition of our historic consultant, you don't believe that a review or any type of outline, without going into your theology of windows?
No, I don't have any recommendation.
All right. Any issue of the board?
No?
No.
Like and kind.
Thank
Any
you.
comments from the public? All right, there seems to be no opposition to the board. At this point, because it's located in the historic district, still requires written decision by council. So at this time, we'll vote to close the application for written decision. Hopefully, we'll have it at our next meeting. Any questions?
No, I just have the two notarized forms.
Right there.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You can give that right to her.
Yep, thanks.
Motion to close the application for written decision by council.
Make a motion that we close the application of William Serrata at 112 Elm Street for written decision by our council. Is that the one?
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Add that in to the file.
This is good.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the pace this evening. I think we're rushing through, but we're going to just start on the non-historic applications. We will return back to the historic applications once we finish the 4 applications on non-historic. First application, non-historic.
Robert Baradian at 23 James Street.
Yeah, we're going to come back to the, we're going to come back to the historic.
This is not historic.
We're going to come back to the, right now we're on to James Street.
Be a different agenda then.
No,
61 Pheasant?
Well, it might, ours is,
We do not have pheasant, no.
yeah, it's the
Well,
next
that
one,
second one.
51.
This is the one that I...
Number 2 on this agenda is 51 Pheasant Lane.
Okay.
That was changed agenda.
John,
I'm looking at 161.
was the application withdrawn, or?
No.
I don't have it on our agenda, on my agenda. I know a previous agenda and prior agendas, I just, for some reason, don't have it on the revised.
I'm
Is there a
looking,
purpose or reason?
I'm looking right at my
This was on my
agenda that I
Yeah.
pulled off this website today. 61 Pheasant Lane. I mean, I don't care what order we're in, but it's on.
61?
Yeah,
61
I think it was approved last time.
Pheasant.
51.
No, everyone liked it, but you wanted more time to look at it, Ms. Stevenson.
Oh, okay.
We were just down to the widow's
Do we
one,
have time for
remember?
61?
No, we took it out.
I thought it was approved.
I think it was
but
approved.
that's-
It went on the minutes as being
Remember you,
approved.
I do remember. 'cause
yeah,
they- it was
you
put
wanted
in
some
the-
more time to look at the widow's
The
walk,
thing,
pardon me.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
There are lots of texts, and there's a widow's walk, yeah. I did look at it,
We don't have it.
but we don't have it here.
We had it in the minutes.
It was there for a while, but now it's not there, so I don't know what to tell you.
John, I don't have the file.
We can
we could do
demonstrate, we can show you. It was really the board members were viewed it quite favorably. As a matter of fact, Mr. Brady said that, I believe said, his quote was that it approved the architecture, but Ms. Stevenson hadn't had time to look at it, so in all fairness, I wanted to...
And you moved it a little, or reoriented it?
No, we shrank it, and
We reduced it.
But how about the actual, it's in between the 2 peaks of the roof?
we can show you, yes, it's really only about on one side, and we show you some other, like the Shaffroff
There we
residence
go.
where we're sitting right on top.
But we don't, so what do we do about this?
It was on that agenda that was...
So we
We've had a
reduced
lot
it
of
here.
agendas.
We reduced it, and then we showed through the planting plan, and we even took a, what do you call them?
An aerial.
A drone up to the, we'll show you. Steve, if you have that, you even took a drone up to show that it wouldn't have any impact on the neighbor to the, help me out.
South.
To the south. The neighbors to the east both gave us letters of support, and then we showed, you'll remember this,
I'm
Well,
confused as to what
as-
case we're hearing here.
61.
Because there is a 51 on here,
Just
too, you know.
take it easy, 1 second, just so we can have order. Unfortunately, we have 2 sets of, we have 2 agendas. For whatever apparent reason, 61 was taken off of the agenda we received this evening. Taking in fact that it was no objection of the last board meeting, I'm wondering if we have standing not having the file here physically
Sure
in
you
front
do.
of us.
Sure you do, it's before you. The application is before you.
I get it, I understand it, I don't have the actual physical application
We can give
here.
you a copy of the elevations.
But we will state, based as a point of fact, that if the application was not approved at the last meeting, and we don't have it in our minutes, and I don't know, Candace, do you have the minutes from the last meeting? You don't have them?
I might have the minutes somewhere else.
I will represent, as an officer of the court, that the board members were viewed it favorably, but Ms. Stevenson hadn't had time to look at it.
That's correct.
So requested an adjournment, so...
I agree with your
yeah,
assessment,
yeah.
Mr. Bennett.
Yep, yeah, that's fine. It is what it is.
In the minutes, it says it was approved.
Okay, well,
Well, I know, but you wanted to
argue
look at it, so... Okay.
I think she did,
Yeah.
but we had a board approval. In other words, she was interested in looking at the application,
Okay.
looking at the parcel one more time, but we had the numbers to approve the application to move forward, and it was approved.
Okay, so it's approved.
I got to base it on my minutes, and my
So it's
minutes say it's approved.
Are you
Without having a
comfortable
copy
with
of the
that,
file
Mr.
here, it
Stevenson? I don't
doesn't make
wanna-
any...
It's fine.
Okay, all right, so it's approved. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If for some reason there's a mix-up, we'll notify you immediately, but based on the minutes,
Okay.
based on the fact I don't have a copy of the file here,
No, I think it's fair, as long as Ms. Stevenson is okay. That was the only, she wanted a little more time, but if it's marked as approved, then that's okay with Ms. Stevenson, that's fine with me.
very good.
Thank you.
Therefore, the next application being 23 James Street.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Kirk Lehman, Richard Osorno for the applicant.
And AML Architecture.
There's one minor change we'd like to submit. In speaking with the client, we decided to pull the house even further back off of the street. It was conforming already. We pulled it back another 7 feet. He just wanted a larger front yard. So just wanted you to be aware of that, and we can submit copies if you'd like.
Please do. So you have a new site plan or a new survey that shows and demonstrates the
Correct.
proposed,
And the
new
only-
proposed siting of the parcel.
Right. And the only change is the pullback of 7 feet further from the street.
Very good.
Thank you.
So you gave us the binder.
For the binder, yes. So it's currently an improved lot with a house that was built in the 60s or 70s, a non-contributing building, and the family has owned it for many years. It was decided to upgrade, demolishing the existing house and creating a new single-family house.
You're getting a bigger front yard, is that correct?
We pushed it back even further, correct?
Zach, do you want to look?
Here, I have an
In moving the building back 7 feet, how does that play into the overall streetscape of that particular street? Is it make it more unconforming? Are there other parcels that have the same front yard setback as yours, or are you maximizing the front yard more so than any other neighboring property?
I would say we're maximizing. The neighbor to the north, I would believe to be much closer than this. And the neighbor to the south, which is his mom, is, I would say, about the same as our proposed siding.
Okay. However, your structure, at least is impacted the street, a little bit larger than the neighboring parcels. So you're taking impact further away, however, you have a bigger profile than the neighbors itself, correct?
Some of the neighbors, there's some houses of similar size. We also reduced the frontage of the house from the existing. The width of the house has gotten narrower, so we're well within the conforming principal setbacks.
The house across the street, directly to the east, has a large front to it, but there's a privet wall right up on the street, so you really don't get the sense of the distance of that house off the street, but it is fairly close.
Did you supply any photos of the neighborhood, or?
Yes, it's in the binder.
In the binder.
Or also in that mini. I believe it's the last page.
Thank you for the color rendering, and thank you for the three-dimensional portrait. It just gives it more depth, and definitely I'm able to look a little better and have a little more depth in terms of what the panelization. Certain portions of the building itself has more panel, and then as it relates to the windows, it makes it easier for us to show the depth. So I appreciate that. It's an attractive-looking house. You have a recessed second-story balcony, correct?
Correct, which is facing our rear yard.
So it's more like a Juliet balcony, but it is recessed, not really substantial in size.
Not on the street, it's on the back side of the house.
Yeah, and it's minor in size.
What's behind the balcony? How close is the next house back there? Because now you've moved yourself back. haven't you?
Oh, it's several hundred feet.
Yeah. The backyard is very deep. The balcony's on the back of the house, facing the pool. And the neighbor is...
Don't have that dimension, but approximately 200 feet just to our property line, and then even more to their house.
But what we've asked most people, most individuals who want to introduce a second-story deck for purposes of privacy to recess it, and the applicant's done so. Any questions, Christine? No?
Yes, I did have a question about something, but I'm finding it.
Okay. Take your time.
The chimney?
Yeah, this aspect here where the chimney appears to be,
Where it goes into the gable?
that's from an upstairs, is that from the master bedroom chimney
Correct.
where it appears to go through the gable?
Correct. We're projecting the gable out on brackets, and it's going up through the gable, and then reappears above the roof line.
Right.
What we tried to do is create a layering to the house, so it's not very flat. It has a lot of rich traditional details.
Any other questions?
No.
Jeff, any comments?
I think it's an attractive house. The only thing I wonder, and maybe, is does it require a streetscape for us to see it relative to the other houses? But I'm not sure it's going to change my decision one way or the other.
Streetscape, not that it makes the application incomplete. We use streetscapes and visual aids of the surrounding area to see the impact.
Right.
And if you feel that this particular, or at least
Well, it's a changing street, and there is a fair amount of open space, so I'm not sure, it's not like we're trying to match other houses there.
I would hope not.
Right, so, right, it's not a significant point for me.
Susan, comments?
No. I'm good.
Any public comment on the application?
There you go.
I think it's a handsome house. I think you did a great job. I appreciate your thoroughness.
Thank you.
Yeah, and moving the house back, that's novel.
Would you like,
Appreciate it.
We recycled them from the last project.
Oh, you did?
We keep using them, yeah.
Here.
You making money?
That's the spirit, going green.
Yeah.
You can take this.
Green
I've got
meeting.
books. I'm going for my master's. I don't need this. I got enough books.
Yeah, we keep one for the file, but
Yeah.
Great. And we could replace it with just a standard,
Yes, could we?
exact same material.
Thank you.
But should they stamp it in?
What's this?
We have that. We have it. We have the sorry, no disrespect. The large files you gave us, there are no difference in terms of the design. The only thing that's different is the setback that you added to that, which you presented with regards to a new site plan, correct?
Correct.
So it's a replica of what you presented today, what we have already existing in the file, with the addition of the new setback.
Absolutely 100%.
Okay. You could just do it.
You can, please. Motion to approve.
make a motion that we approve the application of Robert Baradian at 23 James Street.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Great. Thank you so much.
Next application, please.
100 Horsey Lane LLC at 51 Pheasant Lane.
Good evening, Michael Behringer, architect. for the applicant. I have some small sets of plans, if you would like, that are identical to what's in the file.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike.
And I have a couple of 3D renderings. I will also hand. And I'll give you a moment if I can.
Put the rendering on the table and turn it toward us so the camera can pick it up, please. Thank you.
This isn't the one we saw.
No, it's this next door.
Is it next door? Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, this is next door
I
to.
know.
We're 51.
Okay.
This is an application for a new two-story single-family residence. We have tennis and pool house and attached garage and various accessory structures. Obviously, it all meets the current codes on GFA, pyramid, and lot coverage. This is a flag lot off of a private road in the Murray compound. It has been reviewed by the planning board for the perimeter screening and the tennis court, sunken tennis court. I would say it's a transitional kind of a style where the forms are traditional of shingle style, but the interior and some aspects of the exterior are a little more contemporary. The coloring on the outside is going to be a light beige on the siding, which is all cedar products. The roof is a natural cedar, and the windows will be an oil rubbed bronze. So it's in kind of a tan and brown kind of coloration on the exterior. There are some different types of siding on the exterior. There's some board and batten and some shingle and some horizontal siding, but it's all going to be the same color. It's just to give a little different texture on the outside. And again, tremendous privacy for this lot, and I can answer, perhaps address any questions that you may have.
How far setback is the flag?
The length of the flag strip?
Because it cut off on the...
The length of the flag strip is 314 feet.
314 feet from the private road?
From Pheasant Lane, yes. Essentially, the rear of the property abuts Village of Southampton vacant property that is a sort of a wetland, so we do have a neighbor to the north, which fronts on Wickapog, and the neighbor to the south, which is just a recently approved application by this board. Approximately 2-acre parcel.
So you are introducing second-story decks, but it's leading towards a vacant lot and wetlands, correct?
That's correct, yes, sir. There's one deck that's off the master bedroom on the second floor.
Variations of materials being used from clapboard to cedar to... You went from vertical to horizontal to glass. I don't think this rendering does it really doesn't do any descriptive
It's more of a
demonstration.
It's more of a massing rendering, I would say.
But it doesn't really give us texture in terms of what it's going to look like once.
I mean, the fact that it's one single color, I think, reduces the texture that you might see on the elevations there. They're drawn with the specific line weights of the different siding, but we have worked with this client before on projects, and it is meant to add some texture to the exterior, but There's not a lot of standout different coloring or anything like that.
So you're saying between the vertical, this horizontal, and the cedar, it's all one color?
Same color,
Same
yes,
color.
sir.
But it's going to weather differently?
It's going to be a heavy stain color, like an off-white color. It's meant to have a color, not a natural cedar product to it.
I had some issues with how busy the changes in texture seem to be, along with a lot of windows. I don't know. It didn't sit well. The conglomeration of elements seemed quite busy. And I don't think that, I agree with you, Curtis, that doesn't really let you know what we're looking at, because there are many different, on page 6.
Jeff, you have comments?
Essentially going in the same direction. I'm being asked to take a bit of a leap of faith here based on a two-tone rendering that doesn't show the shingling and the vertical slatting and so on, nor do I really get a sense, other than what you tell me, in terms of the color. So what I'd like to see on the next round, the next visit, is a more complete rendering, an example of the various materials you're using, the shingling, how they're going to be finished, basically a more complete and comprehensive and visual package.
Okay. Christine, comments?
No, I agree. I need to see a more clear rendering.
I think we're all on the same page. This was helpful for purposes of massing, but you just need something better, a little more descriptive in terms of how it's going to read on parcel. Your landscaping, so that we can have a complete discussion. The landscaping was already prepared and done by the planning board, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So, do you want? Did you propose or send in or submit what the approved plan is?
I can give you their approval if you would like.
Well, no, just give us a site plan.
I mean,
showing-
what they, yeah, I can provide that.
All right.
Sure.
So whatever was approved,
Okay.
show it on the site plan so we can identify what's staying. I would really appreciate if you would.
I mean, if you look at sheet 1 of the drawings,
Yeah.
that was the plan that the perimeter hedge, privet, and landscaping for the sunken tennis court, and that's what the planning board addressed.
Okay. So you have the specimens, the different trees that are being proposed, sizes, heights,
Double row privet hedge with a
what
fence in
exists, what's
between.
being added.
It was presented by their landscape people to the planning board. I did not present it to them.
So whoever that, if you can give us or provide a copy of that plan, that would be helpful.
This is the plan that was presented to them.
So there's 2 trees?
Double row of hedge.
I see that. And there are 2 trees or bushes by the parking? Is that it?
There are 2 trees shown at the front of the house on this plan, that's correct.
Yeah, the double row of privet surround, basically buffering the entire parcel.
Yes.
The height on that privet?
I don't see it written on there. I believe it was only 8 feet, but I can get that. I'm assuming you want some more information on the landscaping plan. Okay.
Height.
They were
specimen.
addressing the sunken tennis court.
Understood. It would be nice to know what's pre-existing, what you're adding to it.
Okay.
Just
There's
so
no
we have a complete app.
vegetation on the property right now.
Okay, so everything's being added. in other
Yes, sir.
words. If you could just present that with the height and specimens, that'd be helpful. Excuse me. Any public comment on the application? Anything further of the board? No. Backed on historic district, not really a historic element, however, any comments do you want to?
No, none.
All right, like you're asking this board is to adjourn until the next meeting so you can propose it.
Yep.
Thank you. Motion to approve applicant's request to adjourn until next meeting.
I make a motion that we approve the applicant at 100 Horsey Lane LLC, 51 Pleasant Lane, to adjourn to our next meeting.
I second the motion.
All in
Okay.
favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you very much.
Next application, please.
Next application is Michael Janke and Joseph Beckwar at 209 Elm Street.
Good evening. I'm Michael Johnke, one of the owners of 209 Elm Street, and my spouse, Joe Beckwar, is here as well. Thank you for your attention to our application. We're here on an application for a demolition permit. Our house is not within the historic district. Mr. Studeroth visited our home in August of last year, and you'll see his report in the file. He noted that we have only one of the 5 characteristics for landmark designation. But that a demolition permit should not be issued. Here, Mr. Studeroth, if it's helpful, I do have a copy of that. Here, I'm mindful of the board's time, but
He does.
So as I was saying, we were determined to meet one of 5 criteria for landmark designation, and it was noted that a demolition permit should not be issued until the opportunity for reviewing an application for landmark designation is brought before the board. Just to be clear, we're not applying for landmark designation. I don't believe anyone is. So, candidly, we were even a little confused about being here, but we wanted to honor the procedure, and the building department told us to come before you. So it is our understanding that it would be sort of very unusual for a home to be sort of sua sponte or without a motion of an applicant or anybody sort of designated as a landmark. And not to say that there aren't probably many that are worthy in the village. There's probably hundreds that are worthy, maybe more in the historic district, but with all due respect, I think they'd probably be much more historic than mine and at least meet more than just one of the 5 criteria. I think that there's little cause, if any, for sort of denying our permit, subject to any questions that you may have. But I want to be mindful of your time and not sort of over-argue the case. We do have a precedent of a neighboring house that we're happy to share papers on.
What would be the precedent of the
there was the house right next door that met 2 of the 5 criteria, 95 Layton. We're on the corner of Elm and Layton. 95 Layton was right next door, met 2 of the 5 criteria, and a demolition was allowed of that home, along with a complete rebuild. So it's not only in the same neighborhood, it's right next door. It had some of the same characteristics, but actually met an additional criteria for landmark designation, and was permitted to be demolished. And so we're sort of one step back from that in terms of significance, and are also asking for a demolition permit. And I'm happy to share the papers on 95 Layton that we were able to pull from the file.
Just so you understand, this board is named with the responsibility twofold. One, architectural review, but also historic preservation. As such, we have the discretion of looking at homes that are within the historic district, obviously under a different standard and criteria. But outside of the historic district, we look at opportunities and possible situations where homes are contributing structures outside of the historic district. And therefore, this board has the discretion to bring forward a request to go through a preservation proceedings, where we'll have an open hearing. We would have to call the hearing open. We would have to have conversations and dialogue, both from historic consultants, giving the applicant and those in the community also to defend whether you feel that if it's a viable request to do so, and defend your reasons why, and in which case this board has the discretion to go through that proper proceedings. Fortunately, but unfortunately, we've only done that on one application that I'm aware of in the 12 years that I've been chair of this board, and I believe the existence of this board, we've only done that once. I don't know the nature of the other application you're speaking of. I do recall it being a very lengthy and very tough and confusing, but full of information, and there was a reason and cause for us to finally render a decision to allow the structure to be demolished. I can't go through it all now. I don't have it all within, if you give me some time, I probably can come up with the reasons and purposes why. As it relates to your particular application, our historic consultant did go out as requested per our requirements to do a review, and one of those reviews is to see if it warrants consideration for us to view this as a potential structure outside of the historic district, but contributing. That's why you're here this afternoon, and that's what this evening's conversation will begin. So before we begin, I want to have our historic consultant have the opportunity to refresh us on his reasonings. Also, that may need or move to a different process, because that was just an overview, but not a thorough investigation of your particular building. This may open up the doors for us to review it a little deeper based on commentary and what he feels or a recommendation from our historic consultant. So allow us to sway to his comments, and then we'll come back and address those issues.
If I could just add one thing, certainly no disrespect meant to the process or to the jurisdiction of the ability to review. One other thing I would add is all the attention that you paid to 95 Layton as part of a lengthy review might have largely been in part as part of the renovation plans, which would, of course, have to come back to you on this property when, and if its renovation plans are going to be submitted, that could be the proceeding where there's a lot of attention paid to what's going to go in place of this home. We're here on a very limited process. We wanted to take it one step at a time, but again, no disrespect meant to the process, and of course to Mr. Studenroth.
Very good.
Well, these are challenging because there are many houses in the village which, for a variety of reasons, were not included within the district boundaries that were created in 1986. And so we now have a process which is constructive, I think, to kind of slow the process of losing houses which have good architectural qualities and integrity. Unfortunately, the way the code is written, if a building such as this is not already in the district and could be reconsidered as contributing, it's incumbent on this board to find sufficient architectural qualities within the single building to lift it up to the status of having sufficient architectural or historical associations to be listed individually, which is a much higher bar than just being considered to be contributing to a neighborhood or the architectural qualities of a neighborhood. And the exception that you referred to, or the one instance in designating the old barber shop on North Sea Road, is that that building, while far distant from the historic district boundaries, was considered to have sufficient social context, not architectural per se, but rather as a significant landmark within that community to warrant its own individual designation. And so when I do these reviews, oftentimes a house has some qualities, but they're not of great interest. This one seemed to rise a little above that bar, and so I just felt it was worth a discussion to consider this. But I feel that the actual process of moving toward landmarking this individual building would be a very significant process, and if it's not supported by the owner, it becomes an even more difficult task. So I can't honestly advocate for the preservation of this building unless there is a cooperation with the property owner to see that as a cooperative outcome. In other words,
I'm cautious by that comment.
Okay.
Because it in itself sets a precedent that you feel that if there's no cooperative applicant or owner, no home outside of the historic district should be therefore designated.
No.
And I would never want to lose that vehicle,
Right.
especially in the process by which we're looking at potentially expanding the historic district, in which case this would be a section included in historic district, and therefore this would be looked at under a different purview. However, until that happens, I would be very cautious about specifically stating not having a responsive or cooperative owner should hinder us from proceeding in that manner.
That's the process. I'm just trying to parse this. My recommendation was that consideration be given landmarking, and that there be an opportunity to review this process. In other words, there may be in the village a structure, a house, a building that is architecturally so compelling that regardless of the owner's wishes, might warrant this board's pursuing for landmark designation. That may exist. And you have that's within the code. This code, amazingly enough, does not require owner consent to landmark. And that's a recognition of the fact that the district boundaries are a human construction. There may be oversights within the village, and that allows for that. I'm simply saying that a building can have good architectural qualities and can appear to meet one of the 5 criteria, but it may not have quite the stuff to be its own individual landmark, which is a much heavier lift than to be considered contributing to the architectural quality of a neighborhood, which is what I feel this does. But I haven't gone beyond that in this assessment.
Is this an application we need a little more time to review and you do more research on the history of the building?
I think that might be better guidance for the board. So we're out of the
I would
gray
feel
area.
very, and I'm going to just speak solely as a member of the board, not necessarily as the chair, but just a member of the board. I would feel more comfortable as a member of the board before just granting, freely granting a demo of, especially since you've identified that there be one, and which is only criteria we need, one of the 5.
Right.
I would need more from a review, either by you or independently, before I would be willing to just grant a certificate of appropriateness to proceed.
Okay, I'll review it again.
Okay. Christine, any comments about that?
No.
Jeff?
Kind of agree.
A question, what's the date the house was built?
We thought around 1890.
So this is a 125-year-old house, and we're parsing words to try to save it or demolish it. I don't mean to be rude, but in terms of contributing, by its nature, it contributes. It's an historical house in its context. It represents that part of the village. So I'm happy to listen to your report, Zach, but I think we have an obligation to preserve houses of this nature.
Just to address that point for whatever it's worth as the owner, this home is not it's a 2-family home, which is very rare in the village. I think the village would be probably happy and well served by a home being returned to a single-family residence. I know that's maybe a different board, a different jurisdiction, but as an owner, to have sort of our on the basis we're not in the historic district. I understand if you're in the historic district and you're contributing, that's one ballpark. We're not there. We're outside the historic district, and we meet one of 5 criteria. To start sort of cherry picking homes within the village for this sort of individual, review and lengthy process potentially.
Well,
really
I'm going to have to stop you there because
Sorry.
our process has never been a cherry pick process. You at a point in time in the past, received services from a historic consultant because it was identified as a property of interest. So some time ago, you knew that that was part of the review. At that time, it identified a characteristic which would deem this board the responsibility to expand on that review to see a little deeper whether it is a contributing structure outside of the historic district. Any home over 100 years old is going to have some type of historical impact if removed from the village of Southampton in all of its rich history. So I'm going to have to challenge you on saying anything about cherry picking. The reference of it being 1 family, 3 family, or 10 family is irrelevant. If it's a relic within the village of Southampton, we have to identify it as such, look at it, review it, and then feel comfortable about our decision after the fact.
Right. And might I add just one point about 1 family versus a 2 family. I appreciate your concern for the community. I would also appreciate if that same concern tried to restore this house and keep it in kind. By example, a house on Halsey Street in Armonk, which was, Zach, if you recall, about 3 weeks ago, was originally built as a two-family. The folks did a great job of converting it to single-family. We accommodated them by allowing certain changes to the window. So, yes, two-family, one-family, but preserving that house is something I wish you would consider for the sake of the community.
Your comments are respected, and again, no slight intended with the chair-picking comment. It just, it's a process, obviously, that's educating us, but it's one where we look at what happened next door, and even if there was a lengthy process there.
Don't know the merits of what happened next door, don't know the specifics of why and what the principle for the final decision, and I can't. And this board right now is not looking at that application, it's looking at yours independently.
May I just, as part of the record, because I do think it is relevant, put in the papers that we have on the next door proceeding for purposes of this proceeding?
I think personally it's irrelevant, and secondly, if something was done on that house, and if it was done in error, two wrongs don't make a right.
I'm not saying anything was done in error. What I'm saying is the specific nature of why that application rendered its decision is not before the board today. We're looking at your application independently. We're reviewing it. If you want to make the argument and bring in reasons and purposes for that reason, not assumptions or accusations, but actual evidence as to why, and you feel that it warrants, and therefore even identifies a precedent that's been set, you have the discretion to bring it before this board. We also have the responsibility of weighing that to see if it actually has any merit. As of right now, we're not saying yes or no. I just want you to understand you're not walking away from the podium or this application is being closed this afternoon for any purposes other than for review. And once the review comes back before us and we have the opportunity to review it, whether it's by a historic consultant or by even an independent counsel, which we've done in the past, where we would have one or more opinions on the merits and historic merits of a particular parcel, which may be a little difficult. So we will look at every measure, we'll look at every possibility to help and assist you in your process, but we also have a responsibility that we sought after, that we actually swore to uphold, and we have to go by that process.
Understood. And all I'm asking is, as part of that process, that part of the evidence that be considered is at least consider the possibility, not make a decision, but consider the possibility that the house next door, not miles away, but next door, had one of the same characteristics, but also others, you can at least go back and look at the process behind that. But Zach could also re-review his papers on that.
I'm going to tell you, counsel's not here today, but I'm going to tell you what he's going to say, because I know Bill at this time, 12 years knowing the guy. He's going to tell me, it's not our responsibility to do your homework. If you have something specific that you want to present to the board as an example, to demonstrate to this board that it set a precedent, is your responsibility as the applicant. We won't go back and look at a prior application, pull it out, and review it and say.
I'm prepared to do that.
Excellent. Susan, any comments?
Not at this time.
All right.
I do think that it's a charming old house and that it's big on the lot. It's not like it's a space problem from my perspective, so.
Okay. There's nothing further of the board unless you have something further to add.
No.
Any public comment on the application? I know you have something further, but is there any public comment on the application? Is something further, sir?
Just because I did try to come prepared and not assume anything in terms of asking you to go back and look at things, since I brought copies of the papers on 95 Layton, may I present them to the board for further discussion?
Thank you. Something specific in the information that you've read that you want to address that you feel is similar, or
yeah,
not just that it has two characteristics, but what was the final finding on why it was rendered? Is there something specific that you want to do as a comparison?
It's the comparability of the fact that they were similar in terms of architectural integrity. One of these copies was from Mr. Studenroth. And that, in fact, some of the characteristics were not even marked as no, whereas all of ours, except for the one, were specifically marked as no. So there really was a determination made on ours that 4 of the 5 criteria were specifically not met, whereas on this application, there was really just 3 left open and 2 yeses. So
Okay, so it's just the selection sheet that was prepared by our historic consultant is what you're saying is your evidence that they had 2 and you only have 1, so you should be better fit?
And also the descriptive characteristics, if you compare the descriptive characteristics to ours, and I don't any longer have ours in front of us, but if you compare the descriptive characteristics and also the date of construction is also very similar. So the period we're talking about, I think if you looked at the pictures of the 2 homes, you would see similarities in style. And so, the notion that ours has sort of a greater historical significance than the house next door that was permitted to be torn down.
Just a suggestion, maybe you should wait till his report comes back, and that way you set your either your argument or your defense based on information that comes back from his research and observation.
Okay, so, and then if I could just understand how I will know what more to come back with in a future proceeding?
You'll have a report in the file by?
Long before the next meeting, within the week.
It'll be in the file. So figure 5 days. Oh, it's Memorial Day.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Jack doesn't.
You don't have plans?
Jack doesn't have holidays.
Sorry. We'll do the best, but it definitely will be in the file prior to the next meeting. If you want to change numbers, I think you've contacted one another before. So, since there's no public comment, nothing further of the board, Zach's going to prepare his presentation, so you'll allow us to adjourn until the next meeting so that he could prepare his information and also get you in a position to prepare for any rebuttal you wish to do so, correct?
Yes.
At this time, we'll approve the applicant's allowance to allow us to adjourn until our next meeting. Motion to approve the applicant's request.
I make a motion that we approve the applicant request to adjourn to our next meeting.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Our last non-historic application for this evening?
119 McGee Street, LLC.
Jeremy Lindsay from Build Architecture, representing 119 McGee LLC. I have the affidavit posting. And the drawings to present.
So do you have small?
I don't have small. I don't have produced plans. Will we be able to look at it on screen?
You're going to have to.
Okay, is that all right? So I just was going to give a site overview, just to show the property, and actually to give a broader picture. My firm and I have designed the neighboring house next door. We have looked, this was 117 McGee, which we brought before you several months previous. The houses are very simple, very straightforward, in keeping with sort of the barns and the sort of natural environment of Long Island's South and North Shore on the east of the island. The building is essentially 2 masses, very sort of simple gable, barn-like in structure. You can see, from our setback diagrams, a sort of very simple overview, but the larger sort of entry barn holding a garage and the bedrooms, and then a secondary one-story structure, this is 2-story, one-story structure in which the bedrooms are housed. There's a master on the first floor, 2 bedrooms above. We can also go through the plans.
We can just go through the elevations.
Sure, elevations, of course. The house is clad in cedar shake, will be left natural. So again, the thinking is to keep the house very straightforward, very simple, but also that kind of barn-like aesthetic. front, sort of two-story mass, smaller living area mass. This is sort of showing its cladding. The client is contemplating, like his neighbor, of using a metal roof, standing seam, as well, with the kind of barn vernacular. As we move around the building, there are some larger areas of glazing here in the living pavilion. As we move around the building, more sort of 8-foot-high glazing on the master side and 8-foot-high glazing again on the other side of the living pavilion. And then walking through, a sliding barn door for the entry for a car, for the automobile into the garage. And again, sort of very simple glazing throughout.
So when you said barn-like,
It wasn't fooling.
it's a little more than barn-like.
Yeah, well, exactly. And the house is, it's tucked back 40 feet off of the street in a more agricultural area on the site, in the town. And the village, excuse me. And so was also kind of meant as a partner to another similar design structure next door.
Is there a specific reason, whether it's energy efficiency or is it just person's preference for all of the windows and the glazing and?
So the glazing, again, it's a preference, a light and air, as well as bringing the outdoors inside.
And just looking at the frequencies of windows, so you're looking at cross ventilation, it's like you
Correct.
make it more natural.
Correct. All of these things we're thinking about at the same time.
And you're saying you're thinking about doing a metal roof, or you are going to be presenting it?
The current design is presenting a metal roof.
What is the color of the metal roof?
The metal roof will be a very dull gray to sort of keep down reflectivity and echo that sort of more, it'll be very, very tight and also very crisp, I guess I would call it, as an architectural move, but also referencing some of the agricultural buildings of Southampton's past.
Okay. And the chimney,
Chimney will actually be clad in metal, so it will be just like the roof.
You're really going with the industrial look.
I would call it a farm,
Okay.
sort of like farm vernacular.
I would need to see something in color. I think it's a lot of the one-dimensional is getting lost. For me personally, I'm not saying, mentioning this to the board, I'm sure the board will have their own review. And I understand why some of the projects that I'm actually working on, we're looking at some of the similar styles and cross-ventilation and using it. However, it's not reading any of the personality of the building itself, just based on the black and white. So I need to see something a little more in depth before I can make a final.
That's fine.
See what the board has to say overall.
Yeah, of course.
Jeff, any comments?
The same, a more comprehensive rendering, color schemes, samples of the materials you mentioned. I'm trying to put it in the context of the street. What do you think, Curtis? Does it need a streetscape?
You say you're relating, or you're trying to have a natural relationship with the neighbor. It would be nice to see how your plans to do so, but also how now these two introductions of new architecture is going to be with the overall. Sometimes you introduce one, it's the outlier, but it's not that invasive. But now you introduce two, and you look like it's just a natural farm on two different lots.
Of course. So its sister house was approved by this board a couple months ago.
Okay.
I can bring those drawings back with me.
Not necessarily the drawings. If you can show us photo renderings, show us a streetscape. So in other words, you're showing you a lot, you're going 3 or 4 lots to the left, 3 or 4 lots to the right to identify what.
And this would be just photos with the buildings inserted inside.
Excellent.
Okay,
That would be helpful.
No problem.
Last but not least, the chimney. That's the portion I really want to see more detail. The actual chimney, the material being used. How have you shown that demonstrated on another building? just so we can have, and also the roof as well. So the coloring is going to help in playing into all that, but a sample of actual, the roof, the coupling, just need to see what it's going to
Of course,
appear.
absolutely. Would a render be preferable to the colored elevations, or would the board, what would the board like most to see?
Well,
Because the streetscape, I understand, will do the photos and place things inside.
You got to understand that, again, looking at it one-dimensionally, whatever you feel is going to best present your case to show dimension and show texture, that's what we say. More is better.
Yep, that sounds fine.
Never hurtful or harmful for your application to show both renderings, show both examples if you feel that that's going to be best, or one being better than the other.
Perfect. Excellent.
Christine, any comments?
No, it would be very helpful to see something that more clearly depicts the house and how it's going to fit in with the
Sure,
surround.
no problem.
Susan, you know.
Thank you.
No, I
Yeah, of
agree.
course.
I agree, we need to see more. Thank you.
Any public comment on the application? All right, so you're going to prepare yourself, you have more information and smaller plans?
Sure.
Something we can handle and manage
Yeah,
up here
we'll
for
pass
ourselves?
them around, no problem.
Thanks very much. You're going to request to adjourn so that we can prepare
Indeed,
that?
yes, a request for an adjournment.
Motion to approve applicant's request to adjourn until our next meeting.
I make a motion that we approve the applicant on McGee Street's request to adjourn to our next meeting.
Thank you so
I
much.
second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, we return back to,
Yeah, I'm going to grab it.
okay.
Can we have 1 second?
You going for a beer run?
Yeah.
Water? I'm not that skinny.
They need to set up stuff.
If we can get a call for 24 and 28 Gin Lane, I'm sure you have to set up, so let's wait for Jeff to return.
Do you want me to call it now?
Yes.
Next case is 24 Southampton 24 LLC 24 Gin Lane and Southampton 28 LLC 28 Gin Lane.
Nice catch, buddy.
John.
What?
Flying plans. Come on.
He caught him. He's a big boy.
No, you don't. Stamped in. Stamped in. Stamped in. Take that back.
I'd like you all to have a copy because
I know, they need to be
It has to
stamped.
be stamped in.
Okay.
I don't know, I'm not running the show.
Excellent. Not on the way.
Okay, just checking it, just thought maybe it
Purposes
was in
of
the
this-
wrong place.
No, unfortunately, the historic district's cut off in between there. This board really should look into expanding it.
That's right. It's too late, I bet.
No, it's not too late. We still have the funding for it. It should
Okay.
end the work. Yes.
Well, that would be good. I'm going to give him one. No.
Jack, do you have one?
I got one.
Just gonna get some.
These are the...
Oh, it's been up for a while. This is,
Fourth time.
We were getting this now.
all right, while we're waiting, John, this is being presented this evening. This is not paperwork or information that's been received prior. Okay, so it's the
That's why I
first
gave
time
Jeff a
reviewing
copy.
this.
Excuse me?
It's the first time reviewing this?
It's all stuff that's in the village file, but I compiled it. This is stuff that comes out of the village's own, primarily, some out of the village's own documents, some out of surveys,
Right.
some out of
But it's not in the
applications.
file for
No, it's
28.
not in the file.
Right,
Thank you,
being
that was
handed today, right.
Just, we've been in there.
You can proceed.
Can I start? Okay, great. So obviously, I've been thinking about this case for quite a bit, and this is the fourth time the matter has been on. And it suddenly occurred to me, experts aside and lawyers aside and everything, I don't think there's anybody that knows the village estate area better than I do. So I started looking at it, and I started looking at the surveys in my file. I started looking about the projects that I worked on. I started looking about looked at the Village Historic District and the sheets, the blue sheets, the state blue sheets, and it became extremely clear to me that this is a very, very consistent application, unquestionably. An appropriate acknowledgement of your jurisdiction and a true awareness of the neighborhood and the history of historic estate houses, their size, height, and style, which is far from uniform. Okay? This is not an estate area that was, and I'll demonstrate this beyond Cabell to you, this is not an estate area that has been characterized as what one would call a uni-style or some sort of uniform style. It's actually been an area of extremely large houses. Some of them are existing, some of them have been demolished, and interestingly enough, people tend to bemoan those houses being demolished, except when it cuts against their argument. I'm going to talk to you about some very large houses that both exist and have been demolished, but they all form part of the historic estate area. This is not a large house. All you have to do is look to the east on Gin Lane. I'll go through this specifically, but just highlighting, foreshadowing some of the houses I'm going to talk about. 56 Gin Lane is in excess of 1,800 square feet.
1,800?
1,000, excuse me. The former Joseph Copley Toller residence was 20,000 square feet. That was a residence that is, the only thing left of it is the 328 Gin Lane house, which recently sold. The former house at 140 Gin Lane was in excess of 20,000 square feet.
I want to stop with the conversations about square footage and sizes because it's going to lead to a conversation this board has to stop talking about, has to stop. This is now the fourth application of the problems that we've, and issues and conversations and topics that we've had time and time again. What's the purview of this board, and does it have the right to address size and mass? Our board has reviewed, and this is part of the reason why over the last 4 meetings, this board has not said a lot or much in terms of the application. We've addressed and listened to and heard all of the applicants and the community, as well as representation of what we had the right to do and not right to do, and we've had dialogue with our council. At this point, this board's understanding is that we do not have site plan review approval, and we do not have the right to discuss, to determine whether a house is too big or too large. We have a right as an architectural board of review to look at the architect and how that relates to the impact on the property. If the house is 10,000 square foot, how will it read and relate on the parcel, and what would be the architectural impact of that structure after completion? Not size, not height. We have a discretion on how the architectural is read and reviewed, period. I don't want to get back and forth over this. You have the right to do so. You don't have the right to do so. It has always been our understanding. We've stayed firm to that. We've continued, and I don't want this board to sway off of that understanding today. It just gets overwhelming. We go into a direction that this board, it does not have the purview to listen to, and then we get into conversations that last 3.5 hours over things that we don't have the jurisdiction to discuss. So let that be part of our record today. We do not have the jurisdiction to make recommendations on reducing the size of a house. So if that can cut out 90% of your talk right now, that would be helpful, but we are not going to start having this conversation about size.
It'll cut out a lot of the talk, and I appreciate that very, very direct and accurate recitation of the board's jurisdiction. I do want to add that I find it unfortunate that you've had to you've had to recite that time and time again, what is exactly the law. And not only that, it occurred in the matter of the application of the Farrell Building Company case. The board itself recognized that size and height are a function of section 116.17.1.
I get it. It's been
The only reason I bring it up is because there has been a tendency of not only the applicants, but hints from some of the board members that they have the jurisdiction to downsize the house, which, by the way, this house is not as high nor as tall nor as it could be, nor as it is
again.
So let me switch, if I may, to just a very
architectural review.
Very fair. So one of the things that has been stated is that, in effect, this house is not a shingle-style house, and therefore it doesn't blend into the nature of the community. I think it doesn't take an architectural historian, and I'll leave this with you. And what I've done is shown many, many examples of significant homes in the estate area, both on Gin Lane and off Gin Lane, that are simply not Victorian shingle-style houses. There are both existing houses and houses that form part of the fabric of the estate area and the history of the estate area. And I'll leave those to you for your review. I just think some of them are worth mentioning. But you know what? I'll leave that. They're all here. They're all documented. They're all tabbed. They're all exhibit. I particularly refer them to Mr. Studenroth for his review. Having said all of that, and thank you, and I'll try to abbreviate this, this is the fourth hearing. For whatever reason, and I'm not being overly critical of it, but for whatever reason, probably because of, feeling a need to respond to opposition based upon size and height, feeling a requirement to talk about certain characteristics of it, I haven't really heard this board's position on the architecture of the house. This is the second iteration. We made these changes based upon what we were trying to glean from comments that the board had made to oppositional comments, but we don't have any direct comments from the board about the architecture. So I would respectfully request that the board give us their input on the architecture of the house, which we think is in fitting with the estate area. It is not a contemporary house, as Mr. Haynes has demonstrated unequivocally. Cedar siding, cedar roof. There are some elements of standing seam copper, brick chimneys, and the like. I don't want to take you through. He's taken the board through it on different occasions,
now,
so I'd like to see the input.
As it relates to the architecture, that's the conversation that, again, within our jurisdiction to do. There was some concerns about the building being, I know in prior times they say it looked more like a college or a municipal building. I think this would be personally, you've toned it down. However, I don't believe that it is totally addressed the concerns or issues specifically of me, and I know of another board member who's unfortunately not here, but he will address it on his own. I think you have a plain vanilla slate to design a house. I believe you could do better in terms of style, me personally, better in terms of review, where you have where the house is, what someone said, collected, facing someone's house, rather than the house being built or designed in a manner where it's more receptive from whatever angle, but not necessarily specifically to a neighboring parcel. And that's I guess the entry point of where you believe the concrete.
To the east?
Yes.
Yes. We did move it.
I understand you moved it. I just believe in terms of design, there could have been a better way to relate that. Again, a plain slate, typically, normally you would make those annexed because of additions that were made over time, and that was the limitation because of the lot size or lot configuration. However, since you have a plain vanilla slate, you really have the imagination to do something, I think, a little bit more in keeping, more in design. That's just my own personal opinion. We're not a board that's going to be here to redesign your house for you or redesign any applicant's house. However, when a specific design is one of which we feel could be done better, we ask the applicant to go back and look at again, as a clean slate, a better way of interpreting that lot and building something I think is more receptive.
How do I say this? With an enormous amount of respect for the way you run your board, and an enormous amount of respect for the gentleman that you are and how you try to bring everybody together, I don't know what to say, but that's somewhat unhelpful to me because I don't know specifically. We don't have a long house. We've tried. You have, in effect, reverse wings. We've tried to do that. We reduced the length of the house, even though we didn't have to do that. We've reduced the height of the house. You have to, if I may, if you would please give me specifics about design. I don't think you can tell me that I have to design a Victorian shingle-style house.
I didn't say
okay. All right.
I didn't make any design
I'm
specifics.
trying to get some. And sort of, where's the meat in your comments?
Understood.
You have to give me some sort of, whatever they are.
Well, and you know, you've been here before and you understand this. We're just demonstrating or explaining to you how your presentation relates and how we feel the impact would be, especially specifically to neighboring parcels. You moving it back impacts people to the south of you, and then you moving it in a different direction will impact people to the north of you. So it's just, I know you said you're moving it back, but now you've...
No. We moved the easterly facade further away from the Michaelcheks and the Mangers.
Okay.
We also lowered the roof line.
So moving it in one direction
Yes.
impacts...
No, because what you have over here is you have a house, you have a lot that Schleifer, Ayers, and Glen August purchased and sterilized, so there's no impact directly to the east. And then you have a vacant lot.
Okay,
I know
I've been there, been a couple
done all
times.
these transactions and done a lot of land use work on it. You have 16 Gin, which is the old Woodlawn Manor. Then you have a vacant lot, which has not been sterilized, but it's vacant. Okay. It's owned by August or controlled by him. Then you have a lot that my client, Mr. Ayers and Mr. August paid $50 million. No, it's important. It is important. It's very important.
I understand.
Well, you can say it's not important, but it is important. So they sterilized this lot, a public benefit. They sterilized this lot so it can't be further developed. There's no impact on that. And then you have...
You're saying the purposes of sterilizing the two lots, or you're trying to imply that the purpose of sterilizing those two lots is that there will be no impact if you were to position the house in a different manner and no one would?
No, you wanted to know what the impact was to the west. Correct. So what I'm showing you is right here, as you come right in front, due north, that's controlled by, that's controlled by the applicant. Due north, that's controlled by the applicant. Then you move to the east, to the west, that is owned or controlled by Mr. Ayers, who has had no opposition.
So it's the ownerships and relations in terms of just the design.
I'm trying to respond to why we chose to move the house further to the west, because you have no opposition, sterilized, vacant, no opposition. So these people have either said that they're not impacted or couldn't be because of sterilization, which is why we moved it, even though we didn't have to the west, and which is why we changed the courtyard. So, we agree that it's within your jurisdiction to tell us about architecture, but I need you to be specific, because otherwise we're just chasing our tail.
I'm not chasing your tail. It's our first conversation and discussion about the overall design and construction.
Right. So there's no impact on the lots
from the creation of your original design, which was tempered down to a less municipal look. But however, I don't know if it's...
Well, this is what just let me go through if I may. From the original design, we reduced the GFA from 17,000 to 25 to 16,195. The overall length was reduced to 183 from 200. The roof heights of different sections were varied. The gable ends were eliminated and all roofs were made hip roofs to soften the roof line. The heights, widths, and depths of the angled bays were reduced significantly. You remember these bays were quite prominent, and the only thing that I could get from board's concerns about the bays were in relation to comments made by the objectants, so that the bays were significantly softened and reduced. The connectors between the main building block and the side wings were lengthened. The house was shifted 4 feet further from the easterly property line. The roof materials were varied, with connectors being lead-coated copper standing seam with the main and existing wings shake. The number of windows facing the east, again, east towards the Michaelcheks and the Mangas, who had the issues, was reduced. The amount of glass within the entry court, again, the entry court being facing to the east, was reduced. There was an exposed rear circular deck was removed and replaced with a concealed stair. The ocean-facing deck was reduced in size in a concession to the Mangers' main house, which sits 61 feet to the south on the dune. The central chimney was added to the west elevation. And these were all done in response merely to neighbors' concerns, before even hearing the direct comments of the board.
We appreciate the changes and the adjustments and the attempts to handle and respond to neighbors' concerns or issues.
And regarding the neighbors' concerns...
With that said,
if I may, just one thing.
let me finish my comment. With that said, you still have a plain envelope in terms of designing something that we feel could be a little bit more creative rather than the two wing homes, slantly, or home that's shifted to the long angle of the house, of the parcel itself, towards the narrow end going towards the beach. And we understand why, give you views of the beach and so forth. I just believe that it's a better way and a better method by which you could temper down the design a little bit more so the impact's not as
I have no idea what that means.
Then maybe the architect...
I literally have, and I don't appreciate the laughter either. And that's
they're laughing at me, not you.
No, okay. So, no, they're not. I have no idea what that means, because it's incumbent upon you as a board that has architectural review to tell me how you want this house changed.
Yes, it absolutely is. It is not incumbent upon us to tell you...
That's what Kathy Bellows used to say, but that's been discredited.
Now you're going to compare me to a Kathy Bellows?
I'm not going to go there.
Or anyone else for that matter. This has nothing to do with any individual and no disparagement of any person who used to sit in this seat. I will say this.
Mr. Manger said, we won't have any problem with the house if it was reduced by 4,000 to 5,000 square feet. Now, that's not about architecture. That's about size. So what I'm trying to figure out is, how would you like me to change this house?
Is the architect here?
No, the architect is not here. But that he doesn't even have to be here. There's a representative of his office here, but he doesn't have to be here.
Those are my comments. We'll see if any other board member has any other further comments. Those are mine.
Okay, thank you.
Susan, do you have any comments?
Well, I agree with you. I think that the structure as it is now is sort of a hulking presence in what is an extremely sensitive historic area. And I also feel that the design is more institutional than residential in nature. And that's all I have to say.
Christine, do you have any comments?
Yes, I'm concerned about the architecture because I feel like a modern interpretation of the shingle style isn't compatible with this neighborhood, and compatible is a big word in our code. Compatibility is important. If you ask me what I would like to see there, and I know I'm not supposed to design the house, I would like to see a house that looks as though it landed there 100 years ago, and it's still there, and it's appropriate, and it's compatible. But that's my wish list. That doesn't make it. It just doesn't do it.
Jeff, any comments?
Yeah, a few. I had actually prepared some pictures to share with you, but in essence, some of the pictures were behind me. Oh, granted, that's a mural. But it speaks to the issue of compatibility. The code is specific in saying that to issue a certificate of appropriateness, the new construction must be compatible with nearby properties in the historic district. It then gives us specific criteria in terms of general design, scale, and scale is an architectural concept, texture, materials, visual compatibility, features or property consistent with their historical and architectural culture. So when I looked at the properties around Lake Agawam, Jim Lane, and Fairleigh, the houses are not monolithic, But one of the things that you can see and they're not all historic, there's some new ones, but there are roof lines, there are looks that speak to the cottages of Gin Lane and South Main Street. And even on this mural, again, for lack of the pictures, you can see there's a variation of roof lines. It was brought up at one of the last meetings that the roof lines descend and fit into the landscape, softening the look, making it a part of the landscape as opposed to something jutting out of the landscape. There's character in the roof lines, there's character in the chimneys, there's character in the windows. So to get specific in terms of this particular property, in terms of its compatibility in comparison to nearby properties, Mr. Hayes presented a number of properties in Newport, Rhode Island, Manchester by the Sea, and England, and then with a few properties in Southampton, but distant from this, and with some features here and there, but taken out of context or theme. Repeating what some of my fellow board members said, the general design and character, which is again one of those criteria, is that more of an institution rather than a cottage of Gin Lane, which is, if you, there's a whole book on it, which I'm seeing, so I'm sure you've read it.
It's more about personalities than...
John, I'm speaking. Thank you. Okay. So in terms of general design and character and appropriateness, again, this looks more like an institution rather than a summer cottage or anything like a summer cottage. And it has nothing to do, cottages don't necessarily have to be small. They can be large. In terms of scale, which is again one of the criteria in its architectural concept, this property, as was shown by architectural renderings before, dwarfs nearby properties by anywhere from... I'm talking scale. I'm talking architectural scale. John, okay, you don't like laughter? I don't like laughter.
I don't like it when you misquote the law. That's
okay.
what I don't like.
So,
And we're going to be amicable with each other, no matter whether we're presenting or we're...
So Code 65C speaks to scale. The scale of proposed new alteration or new construction in relation to the property itself, surrounding properties, and the neighborhood. So scale is viewed as an architectural term. You can have something the same square footage, different heights, different configurations that will give it a different appearance of scale. Where property's positioned, a house on the property. I'm all of 5'6" and change, but depending on where I stand in relationship to Zach, I may appear to be more or less massive. So scale is an architectural concept, and like Curtis was saying, you have a blank slate, you can play with scale. The texture and materials, this is probably the only point in which I'm in agreement with Mr. Hayes in terms of you use shingles, great. But beyond that, in terms of visual compatibility, the use of the two columns of windows give it a very institutional look. It's boxy and bulky, in my view, as Susan said. The roof lines lack softness, character, and any attempt to blend into the landscape, including the dunes. And the configurations of the properties present a massing of structure that's just not visually compatible with surrounding properties, even with the open space you're creating. And change, in my mind, the very historical and architectural culture of the area. So you asked a question, and what does compatibility look like? This board is not object to development. That can happen, but it has to be compatible in order to get a certificate of appropriateness. The pictures I selected for that happen to be folks on the very same property. You can't see it as well here, but the Ayers house, which is a very substantial house on the corner, the Ayers house on the corner, I think that's 22 Gin Lane.
It's a Victorian shingle style house.
Okay, so that house is what I would define as compatible. Look how it blends in, okay, to the surrounding area. It blends into the landscape. So you asked a specific question. This, in my mind, is what looks compatible, and as opposed to the rendering of this house, which in my mind, is very institutional and boxy and not compatible. So I hope that's helpful.
To get a historical content, or at least a context of the community, Zach, is there anything you want to add to?
Could I just respond, if I may? Okay. This is old trees. Look familiar?
No.
Hip roof line? Okay.
Cut the wings off.
What?
the
No, it
wings
has a
off.
wing. It has a wing on it.
Both wings? It has
Yeah.
two wings on both
This
sides.
is Tory Burch's house, okay? Look familiar?
But
Same design.
let me, I want to address that. No, before you start, I want to address that. You see the wings that were facing the entryway so that when you come upon the parcel itself, the house presents it as if it were properly fixed
When you come
and it
upon
belonged
this
there.
parcel, you view
You
one
come
of the,
from a side
one of the
view and you
least
go into it.
wide portions of it, okay?
But what I'm saying, in comparison, what you showed us was a good representation of a presence of that style home on a prominent lot, and that presented itself when you came into the parcel from the entryway. That's presenting itself from the side, and you have to literally drive into it to...
That's the only, well, first of all,
Because by
two things,
design,
two things,
but by
number
the-
one.
by
And
the-
number two, there's a guest house.
I get that.
In front
We're
of
gonna
it.
get to that
Let me
too.
finish.
We're
There's a
gonna get to
guest
that.
house in front of it, which guest house itself starts 300 feet from the public road. So no matter how this is oriented, you don't see it from the public road. The northerly facade of this house is 700 feet
But you
from
see
the
that
public
from
road.
Gin Lane, correct?
See what from Gin Lane?
You see that portion of the house, the
You'll see
prominent
this
portion of the
You'll
house.
see the prominent portion of the house from Gin Lane, just the way you see the prominent portion of 56 from Gin Lane, just the way you see the prominent
And we're not
portion.
talking about height, we're not talking about size, we're not talking about feature, we're talking about the content
Just the
of...
way you see, look, let's talk about this, because just the way you see the prominent part of 56 Gin Lane from the main road, just the way you see 104 Gin Lane, the prominent part from 104 Gin Lane from Gin Lane, just the way you see 140, the prominent part from Gin Lane. The mere fact that the view shed is across this part of Gin Lane is irrelevant, because all of these houses in excess, almost 18,000 square feet and in excess of 20,000 square feet on Gin Lane, you see this, the most prominent part from Gin Lane. You'll just see this from a different part of Gin Lane because of the width of the lot and because of the fact that the building envelope for this lot is approximately 650 to 700 feet from Gin Lane. You won't see that part. So I don't see that, in all fairness, as a valid criticism.
Understood. I understand your point. Not that I agree. Zach? Your definition, your presentation, your interpretation of the community, and we've been talking about style, design, we've been speaking about impact. We've not heard from our historic consultant in terms of how you read the community overall.
Yeah. There's no question that this design, the choice of let's call it a Georgian revival.
Fair enough.
Pile, historically would be situated on a substantial parcel and would present its front and its alley to its entrance courtyard, set well back, but it would front the road. I mean, this is traditionally. Or it would be so far distant from the road that it would be reached eventually through over some ponds, etc. So there's ample historical precedent for this style of house, aside from the detailing of the fenestration. And I always like to see modern interpretations of old favorites because they make them new and different and challenging. So there's ample room for invention there. But I feel that the creation of this lot, this artificial creation of this parcel, which is entirely compliant with current zoning, places an extraordinary challenge on the designer on one hand and on the board on the other, because a house of this size and scale and height, etc., complies. It's just historically the wrong style for such a cramped environment. Because historically, it would have enjoyed a much larger context. But that's not what we have. So to take this design, which is obviously the owner's wish, okay, and by virtue of the fact that it is a flag lot, and a narrow one at that, to have to turn this structure to the side in order to fit it within and comply, in my estimation, aesthetically, it contorts this type of house. It isn't to say that it doesn't comply with the technicalities of what the lot allows. I just find that this particular style is uncomfortably situated in a narrow lot such as this. I mean, the lot's an ample size, but relative to what's being built, it feels as if this structure is being squeezed into the parcel. And that goes to the compatibility or what's harmonious. I mean, clearly, as Mr. Bennett has pointed out, there are an endless number of architectural styles that are represented in the historic district. Regrettably, some of the great ones are now lost, but historically, we don't want them all the same. And some were being built we have a couple of very modern ones dating from the 1930s, which are wonderful. So the choices are endless, in fact. But ultimately, I just feel that this is a house whose the chosen style and the massing of it feels uncomfortably squeezed into the size of the lot. And as a demonstration of that, it doesn't present itself to the street or to the road as it typically would. And I think we have several examples of that. So,
are there any specific suggestions that you have that would ameliorate that in your mind's eye? Because I certainly appreciate your thoughts. I'm struggling with getting something specific.
Yeah.
Because let's just play around with this as an option. And I have to be careful because he's a client of mine, but an overly sized, faux Victorian shingle-style house. Do you really want to see that again? Mm-hmm. I don't. So I'd like to get some more direction. To be honest with you, I don't seem to be getting it in specifics enough from the board. But I value your thoughts on how to go about this. Again, I don't want to have a cookie-cutter Victorian shingle-style house. If there is a style, that there's something that you can help me with. I don't want to have an endless battle on this. I want to get direction. But I'm certainly not going to, as wonderful a guy as Mr. Ayers is, and as wonderful as that Robert A.M. Stern house is on the corner of the road, I'm not going to do that. That's not what we're doing. Excuse me?
I say you asked for
direction. I know, but I would suggest that if you want to push everybody into building the same Victorian style house. That's what I'm hearing.
No,
that's what I'm hearing.
I said what.
That's the reason why I didn't want to. Well, that's specific direction.
But Curtis,
No,
let me say
because this was
something,
the
'cause
perfect.
he's
This was the perfect
challenging me.
example why I didn't want the photos being shown, because now it gets interpreted that that's what we're pushing forward.
What else can I take?
And that is not what was discussed this afternoon.
Curtis, in all fairness, you could take any of these houses, and they would be far more compatible.
There's a house that you could take out of that photo that I've worked on, I represent the owner, and plant in Normandy and the house right next to it. Do you want a Norman-style house there? Then someone's going to say, well, gee, that's not a shingle-style house. That looks like it got dropped in from
You're going
Mars."
back to this board designing the house, and that is also not the purview of this board to be your architect.
But it is your
No, the purview of
requirement
this
if you
board is
don't like
for
the house to give
Hear
me
me out,
direction.
John, hear me out, because I listened, and now I have to address, because it keeps being said, the responsibility of this board is to see what is being proposed before this board. It has the discretion to give interpretations or examples or even details on what we feel will make it better. Ultimately, and our council will support this as well, we are responsible for hearing what's being presented as the interpretation of the applicant and making a determination if it fits in, if it ties in, if it's within keeping with the overall community, if it's something that we feel is just to move forward for an approval. At this point, and even with all the changes that you've made, it still seems like it's a little more industrial than it should be for this particular lot. And the reason why, not because it's the Georgian Revival. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful design in the wrong location. It should not be on the narrow portion of the lot of no substantial.
That's the only place you can go. You've got Dune Crest and Coastal Road.
That's the design and style your applicant has chosen.
No. This is the only area.
The appropriate one for that area.
This is the only area, building envelope, where it can go.
I'm talking interpretation of design, and you're saying location. I'm saying that particular design, it does not personally fit there.
What type of design would you like to see?
Well, that's up to an architect to decide.
No, it's up to you to give me.
No, it is not.
This man has a $53 million investment on it, and it's vulgar to tell him that he has to come back time and time again without any direction from this board.
We're going back and forth.
No, we're not. I'm not listening.
Many people who have had large investments on their parcels have had to come back and forth.
I'm willing to come back, but every time I've been before this board, they've given me significant.
Their financial responsibility or obligation to the parcel, duly noted. However, we still have a responsibility to uphold what we feel is within our purview to do. At this point,
I'd be foolish to suggest that you didn't.
As design right now, we do not feel that particular design and that style is best suited in the location where it is.
You're not being helpful.
Oh, okay.
You're not being helpful. You're not being helpful at all, and I think it's incumbent upon you to give me specific comments, not to say that design, because, excuse me, Curtis, but what the hell does that mean? That design.
If I may, since I'm not as restricted as the board.
Thank you.
I only serve at your.
Thank you.
So I could suggest that rather than such a formal, symmetrical Georgian house sitting under the dune, there's something not organic about that. Okay. So the other style universe that could be looked at would be arts and crafts, as it were, which is more organic. It's not symmetrical. It doesn't require balanced wings. It doesn't need all of that symmetry. And a great example is Wawapek in Cold Spring Harbor, which is the Robert DeForest house. Wonderful, and the footprint is a C. It's huge, but when you drive up to it, you drive through an arched first story in through and into the arcade. It's organic. It's up on a hill. It looks down over the water. It's a huge house. It's wonderful.
Wider.
It's long.
It's also
It's
wider.
got Tiffany window. It's fabulous. But the point is, the inspiration for it is derived from the lot, from the placement, which is not on the ocean. It doesn't enjoy such a fabulous prospect as this. It's on Cold Spring Harbor, but but being an arts and crafts house, it can be organic and it can derive its inspiration from the placement in the land, rather than appearing as if it's a preconceived kind of design, which is just manages to get itself squeezed in, which is,
The
I
roof
think,
lines are not a stranger to the arts and crafts style.
No, but this is, I'm just saying as a different inspiration for the architecture.
You find it too symmetrical. Okay, that's helpful.
But I can say that, and I guess you can't.
And the reason, and I'll address that for the record as well. This board in the past has been very involved in giving recommendations and suggestions, as well as design details on homes. They've come back and taken that into consideration, and it still had some issue with challenges, and therefore the applicants said, well, you told me to do this, I did it, and I am bringing it because you asked the question, and that's the reason, specific reason why.
I know it's not over till it's over.
But I have to treat you like you are any other applicant
you don't.
before
You
this
can treat
board.
me like someone who's been appearing before this board for 30 years, and I know that it's not over till it's over. But one thing is very helpful to me is to get direction. And I know very well that I could come back here and you could say, well, you didn't accurately divine the direction that I was sending it to. I know it's not over until it's a final thing. It's very helpful to me to hear from Zach that he finds that it's too symmetrical. He's given me some examples. I'd like you to help me with that. Zach, did you have anything else you could add?
I think I better stop there.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of sizzling going on in the public now, so allow us for public comments.
The only thing I would ask you to do is to admonish people that if their comments are about something, please, Mrs.
concentrate
Stevens, let me
the
make my
board.
record, because it may very well be a record, okay? I want to know that you'll admonish these people not to talk about height or size. I think you did it. I would like you to repeat it where it's necessary. Thank you.
Thank you.
All I can do is make that request.
Is there any public comment? Please step forward.
Maybe before.
I'm actually a little confused about where we are. It sounds like the applicant's at a decision point.
Sorry?
I said it sounds to me like the applicant is at a decision point, given what the board has just told him about the design of the house.
This board is not, just to respond to that, this board is not at a point where it's deciding anything this evening.
I said the applicant.
Okay.
I'm sorry. The applicant, I said it seems like the applicant is at some kind of a decision point, given the input from the board. I have some witnesses here today to talk, but, you know, I also didn't anticipate getting a 2.5-inch thick, brand-new piece of paper thrown at me, literally, across the room, and I'm going to need time to answer this. There's another attorney sitting in the room. John didn't have the courtesy to throw a copy at her. And I'd like some time to look this over. By the way, it does address size, height, scale, all the issues that Mr. Bennett is telling you to admonish us not to discuss are discussed in this memo. So my application is to adjourn this.
You don't have an application. You mean your request?
My request is to adjourn this so that I have time to review this, answer it, and I can bring in the witnesses. I have a couple witnesses today. It's 9 o'clock at night. We've waited a long time here. I have another witness that is not able to be here at this moment because there was some scheduling confusion about this hearing. We had received word that the hearing had been adjourned till June, I forget the date in June, but till a date in June. We confirmed that with the board, and when that happened, it caused some difficulty with another witness that I have. And he is not available tonight, and I'm thinking in the interest of being efficient with your time, and I don't know, perhaps the applicant's going to have some other input on the architectural style based on your comments, and the fact that we've gotten this document, which council has referred to tonight, even though he's, I don't know whether he's disowning it or arguing it, but he seemed to argue it. I need time to answer this, so I think the most efficient thing to do is simply adjourn the case. And, you know, maybe we can talk in the interim, but I have to prepare some kind of answer to this to be ready to proceed. And I'd rather put witnesses on altogether when there has not been confusion over the date.
I'd like to hear his witnesses tonight, the ones that are here.
I'm more, excuse me, but I prefer to just talk to the board and to the chairman about this without...
Okay, but one at a time, please, John. Mr. Bregman, we have given some direction and conversation about the design. Our focus now has been on the architectural design of his proposed application. Seems that will have to go back to discussion both with the owner and the architect. As it relates to meetings and confusion of meetings, I know that there was a day difference, a business day difference between the day it was requested to be adjourned and the day it was authorized to move forward. Sorry for the confusion. That's through the building department, not this board. We only follow what we're told. With that all said, there seems to be additional work that will have to be decided, discussed. I don't want to get into the specifics about what your clients do, know, or don't know. If they're prepared today, we'll listen to them. We'll see how the remaining portion of the meeting goes. As it stands right now, looks like there will be some design changes, which would be another meeting.
Yeah, so what I'm thinking is, I have one witness that I'm sort of seeing whether I can convince to come out of another
I only ask
commitment.
this, if the conversation and discussion has anything to do with size, height, mass, we will not entertain it.
Well, with respect, Mr. Chairman, and I have to speak to you a little bit more as an attorney here. I know that you know me, and I've been in front of this board for many years as well. But first of all, the chairman alone doesn't decide rules of procedure in this board. You don't even open a meeting by yourself or close a meeting. You ask for a motion from the board, and the board operates by a democratic vote of a majority. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if we have a legal disagreement, I, as an attorney, am entitled to make a record about that agreement, and you are not going to stop me from making that record.
Stop for a second, because I'm going to do it to both of you, unfortunately. And I'm listening to you, and then I'm going to respond. You go ahead, and I'm going to respond to you.
I'm not trying to roll over you here, but I just want to make
You sound like it, and I'm going to respond to it appropriately. So continue moving.
We may disagree. We may have to disagree. In addition, Mr. Bennett, the flying document that Mr. Bennett presented to me by throwing it across the room deals with the issues that you're talking about. I've circled them in the 5 minutes I've had. It deals with size and height of all of these structures.
And in the middle of that deliberation, it was corrected to and explain that this board, and just to address what this chair has the authority to do, we have met. We have had legal discussion with counsel. We have had multiple discussions about the purview of this board. As chair, I'm representing that as a part of our responsibility and our purview. If other board members disagree with that, fine. But my responsibility is to recite what our responsibility, what our purview is, based on legal discussion with both counsel as well as what we've been advised as a board and what we've been trained to do.
Unfortunately, tonight,
what you feel is a challenge to that, I will appreciate it, but unfortunately, this board, as it relates to our legal responsibility and precedent, cannot and will not entertain size, mass, and height.
Mr. Chairman, you alone can't make that decision. There has to be a majority vote.
We will see.
And secondly,
and I'm going to continue to challenge on that.
I'm entitled to make a legal record in this case on any issue that I deem to be...
You had an hour conversation about size and height, which was uninterrupted, and you were allowed all the time necessary to present your case on why you feel this board has the discretion as well as the right to do so. We then went into legal discussion with our own counsel, and that's the findings. We can go back and forth, and we can weigh this. I would suggest that you make it about architectural, about the architectural purposes and materials being used, and how the impact of that architecture could maybe impact mass.
2 points.
But that person, an applicant, has the right to build within whatever he or she has within their building envelope, period. Now, how does it look? That's what we have a responsibility to do.
2 points. The distinction between scale, mass, volume, and architecture is fallacious. There is no way to distinguish and exclude those concepts from a discussion of architecture. It is a false distinction. Secondly, I'm not going to argue the law with you tonight, but I have presented case law that Mr. Bennett intones in every meeting I see in front of this board. Neither of those, the first case is Ferrara. It doesn't apply in a historic district, and it doesn't take a lawyer, it doesn't take a lawyer, I think, to understand that a case decided under a different chapter of your architectural review cannot bind you on a review that's within the historic district under Chapter 65.
And you're going to get challenged on this each time you try to discuss size.
What I'm suggesting to you, Mr. Chairman, is you can challenge me all you want, you can disagree with me all you want, but you cannot silence me from making a record.
Well, I'm not silencing you for making a record. I'm silencing you for making what I feel and what has been already justified by our legal counsel is incorrect information.
I'm sorry, but you're not in a position to make that decision.
And you have made your hour deliberation on how and why you feel we have that responsibility. Now it becomes a repetitive conversation, in which case there's nothing substantive that you're adding to the argument. You're regurgitating what you've already discussed.
We're talking about, Mr. Chairman,
yes,
we are talking about a fundamental issue of fairness and how a meeting is run. Now, Mr. Bennett came in with a document tonight that deals with exactly the issues you're saying cannot be addressed.
He was corrected.
Is he withdrawing it?
No. Stop. Guys, everyone, stop.
I don't appreciate counsel telling me to
hear me out for a second. I'm asking both of you because you're talking over one another. I need both of you to stop.
I have the
both of you to stop.
I'm talking to the chairman.
Let me finish. Mr. Bennett, he has the floor. Please, don't interrupt. Please. Sir.
What I was asking you is, since this document deals with these issues that are suddenly verboten in front of this board, they're prohibited from discussion, is Mr. Bennett going to withdraw this? Because I intend to answer this. I can't answer it tonight, but I do intend to answer it. Secondly, I have one of two witnesses. I can present that witness, and we are going to have some dispute if he starts talking about architectural terms that you deem to be so foreign to your responsibilities that the words cannot be uttered.
No one said foreign. I understand you're trying to come up with reasons and trying to best describe how we would either sanction a person to make any type of speech about
something. I have a witness I can present.
I understand your witness, and you may have an expert witness.
But one I do not.
That witness, and I'm not going to reiterate this any further. If you have anything substance about the design details, dimensions, material being used as it relates to this application, we can move forward. If you have any other discussion, when not even the document that's been received this evening, as you stated, you haven't had the time to digest it, there's no reason to have a continued conversation or just a dialogue over it.
Okay,
and on top of that, we've already had a discussion with the applicant who presented that size is not within our purview to start discussing, only as it relates to impact and design. If he has a 10,000 square foot home, redesigns it in a manner that reduces the impact, then fine, he's done so in a manner which this board can review and make a recommendation.
Well, we're going to proceed with you, with a witness, if you want to hear our witness. One is not going to be available, and I want to return. I assume that I will have time to come back and continue this hearing so I can answer this. I can bring the second witness in at that time. I have a witness that can talk to you tonight. We want to talk about the architecture of the project.
Excellent.
And we are not going to circumscribe ourselves in a way that eliminates criteria that are listed in Chapter 65 that are relevant to your decision. You are perfectly free, and I invite you to say that you disagree with it. But to think of silencing a witness, I think that's inappropriate, and I don't think that the chairman can do that by fiat. So my suggestion would be, and I'm not trying to be defiant with you. I've appeared in front of you many times. We've disagreed on occasions. I understand that reasonable minds may differ. So the way I'd like to proceed is we can bring this witness up, and we'll proceed. And if you disagree with something, of course, you are free to say you disagree. But I want the witness to be able to finish his comments and be done with it, and then you'll note for the record that you've disagreed, your objection is on the record, and at the same time, we can make a complete record. You have to remember, and I'm asking you to keep in mind, that at some point it is likely that someone other than this board or people in the audience are going to review the record, and that's why it's important that we be able to fully speak. But I understand if you object.
And that record also be looked at with regards to what this board has allowed to be entered into the record, especially and specifically if it has no jurisdiction to discuss. I have a responsibility, fiduciary responsibility to the Village of Southampton as a representative of the ARB to make sure that our record is complete. Unfortunately, we haven't been as forced in the past to do so. We have to start doing so now.
I just want to make one comment for the record. There are no rules of evidence that pertain to this board. There are no rules of evidence. This board is free to hear any information that is helpful And what the court decisions say about the fact that there are no rules of evidence is that because you're a local board and because you understand the locality in which these applications are proposed, that you're pretty good at sorting out the wheat from the chaff. And if I may make a suggestion, and it is only a suggestion, it is in general, and I've represented many boards. I've been an attorney for 30 years. I've represented many boards, including architectural review boards. The general procedure that helps you the most is listen to it all, reject what you think is not probative, and make a decision. There's no need, and frankly, there's no legal basis for you to construct an artificial rule that says you have the right to exclude evidence. There are no rules of evidence.
But we also have the discretion of saying, as properly stated, we do have the discretion of hearing all and every portion of anyone's testimony. We also have the right as well as the authority to not. And I think that's where we're going to have.
Well, the only suggestion I can make is why don't we begin? Let's see how it goes.
Absolutely.
If you're polite to me, I'll be polite to you. I'm perfectly happy to have you say
I think I'm the most polite person in the village of Southampton, unfortunately.
I have no problem.
And it becomes my weakness more than it's a gift and a curse.
No, generally that's a successful chairman. I don't have any problem with hearing that, we object or you're getting into something that I object, but I do want the witness to be able to give his full testimony, and then I'm going to come back and ask for more time.
Okay, John, just wait for public comment. I see, and I served for many years as well. Please do so. You can respond after we finish with public comment. Is there anyone else that would like to give testimony or comment?
I wanted to bring. I was so enthralled with that argument, I forgot to introduce the witness. May I? I've brought a professional witness.
Okay.
Meaning a witness who is an architectural professional. Michael Goldblum is here with me. I'm actually going to just help him with the diagrams. I'm going to be his Vanna White. Michael is, I'm not going to give you a big, long history of his credentials, but I do want to say that he's a commissioner on the Landmarks Preservation Commission in New York City, and he is a member of the Directors' Council of the Historic Trust.
Okay.
And Michael wants to talk to you about some of the architectural antecedents and relevant issues.
All right.
I'll help you.
One of the things we did not begin, and that's my error and all of the confusion and information, is to start with the time limit of 3 minutes, which we discussed in the beginning of this meeting. Let me finish, please. It was advocated in the beginning of the meeting that we do implement a 3-minute rule. However, you have a professional who who represents several people, I'm assuming, in the argument of this application. I will extend that to 5 minutes. And I think I'm being more than generous, and I think this board is being more than generous. What it will not do is, it will not entertain hours of dialogue and discussion. We have to unfortunately enforce this as part of, and this board has the discretion to do so, and has done so in the past.
Mr. Chairman, let me propose a compromise here. Rather than battle with you over 3, 5, I think that he can finish in 15 minutes.
It's going to be a 5-minute presentation.
Then, in that event, since you have had a busy agenda tonight that ran till 9 o'clock, I ask you to adjourn this and schedule it on a night when there is less time. There is no rule of fairness that says that because I'm on the other side of this application that we have a time limit. John Bennett and his crew...
John,
he
please,
sat down, then you let him stand up again.
Please, John,
he doesn't care what you say.
John,
he just
no, it seems like no one does.
He doesn't.
Sir, with all due respect, as it relates to municipal procedures, this is a practice that's demonstrated both in villages and the towns within Southampton Township.
There is. I appear in front of boards in this village and in this town constantly. And I have appeared at hearings where they've limited people to 3 minutes, and I have watched as they've adjourned those hearings to continue or allowed people at the end of the hearing, as we are tonight, to speak longer.
No, they close the hearing and they go into public session where they allow people to come back before them to speak in the public forum.
That's not what I'm talking about. I know the difference between a public session and a public hearing.
Okay, I don't want to argue. What we're doing right now is we're arguing over semantics.
There is no reason to limit
We're arguing over
public...
semantics. Sir,
No, we're
can
not.
you...
We're arguing over a substantive issue of fairness.
Do you, sir, can you present
It will require 15 minutes.
I'm asking...
And if the chairman wants a rule limiting a witness who's here, ready to go, that will take 15 minutes, but you want to cut him down
You've
to 10 minutes...
taken 20 minutes to argue this. I just want right now to speak to you.
I call on the board to take a vote.
I'm asking right now at this point that you please either allow your person or your representative to speak, or please have a seat.
I'm
asking
you
politely now
to please allow him to speak for 15 minutes.
I'm not going to continue with this, sir.
Then I think instead of presenting tonight,
I'm not going to continue with
I'm
this,
going to ask you for an adjournment so that we can have adequate
You've
time.
asked. Sir, are you still
May I have
ready?
a decision on that?
You've asked. You've had an opportunity to
May
ask.
I have a vote?
Why are we arguing this? You're bullying the board for purposes of absolutely... This is not helping your case any at all.
I'm asking the board
to conduct a meeting
follow
right
a democratic procedure.
Well, you're not doing that right now. You're asking for more than what has already been determined as a fair amount, and we gave an extension of time for this person, understanding. And now you're saying, in this democratic process you think we have, you're saying, no, I don't want you to adhere to your rule. I want you to extend it even further. I don't think that's fair.
There is no time limit in your rules. I'm familiar with them. And if your board wants to limit this witness, there should be a motion.
Please.
There is a motion. You can't decide as chairman arbitrarily. You can't even close the meeting without a motion.
Now I'm asking you to please have a seat. Now I'm asking you to please have a seat.
Can I have an answer on my application?
I'm asking you to please have a seat.
Can I have it?
This is now unprofessional. I'm asking you please to have a seat. Please. I'm please asking you to have a seat.
Right. Wow. Exciting meeting. I'll be as fast as I possibly can be, and if you got to cut me off, you cut me off. My name is Michael Goldblum. I'm an architect with over 25 years' experience working within historic districts, and also like you, I volunteer my time as a member of a Historic Preservation Review Board, the New York City Landmarks Preservation Commission, where since 2010 I've been a commissioner. I'm an outsider to the village. This is my first appearance before you. And so when I was asked by the Menger family to look at the design of the house, I approach it with outside eyes, and my view is as follows. I look at it from the point of view of the code, the village code, and the guidelines. The code asks for compatibility. Let me take a look at one. So to determine compatibility, as was noted by a few of the board members tonight, you have to determine what the context is. So my first move was, what's the context? Two contexts. The block, the gin lane block, and the more intimate size of the Fairley block. I tried to analyze what the sizes, not sizes, what the scales were of the buildings in the block. And it became clear that the average, well, let's skip over floor area, because we talked about that. Let's talk about style. Given that most of the homes on the block, 12 out of 20 are shingle style, and on Fairley, 6 out of 8 shingle style, Mr. Hayes, in his letter to you, made the right choice in noting that the most appropriate style inspiration for the house would be the shingle style. The guidelines reinforce this, saying that on page 36, the shingle style is often considered the style for residential architecture in Southampton. Then we look at the code itself and how it applies to both the architecture, and to all the manifestations of the architecture of this building. So let's go on. Okay, great. So shingle style is clearly prevalent in this block, and it's an appropriate inspiration, need not be a template. Let's go to the next one. So the code 65-5C4 requires that the board weighs, quote, the visual compatibility with surrounding properties, including proportions of the property's front facade, arrangement of windows, roof shape, rhythm of spacing. So, this section of the code touches on the aesthetic and site planning aspects of architectural design. Each phrase is relevant to this application. Let's go to the next. The proportion refers, hold on a second. That one there, very Proportion refers to how the design would feel. Is it long and low, hugging the ground, or tall and regal, standing imposingly on the site? The guidelines state that a house inspired by the shingle style should have a, quote, distinctly horizontal feel with wraparound porches that continue the roof line. Later it advises, on page 70, a residential neighborhood with large shingle and Queen Anne style buildings possesses a more horizontal appearance. New construction should respect the predominant appearance of its surroundings. The proposed design is, of course, very horizontal since it's very long, but its design takes pains to consistently emphasize verticality. The arrangement of the windows, especially the three-story bays, sorry, there we go. The three-story bays, the full-height windows, the double-height window wall areas emphasize verticality. Let's go on to the next. The windows are another aspect of the guidelines and of the code. Historically, the guidelines say between 15 and 25% of the surface of a wall surface consisted of glass. The style, shape, distribution of door and window openings in new construction should respect those of its neighbors. This is the guidelines, book 69, page 69. Equally important is the proportion of window openings to the overall facade of the building. If we compare, for instance, here we go. The Isaac Bell House, a shingle-style masterpiece that was noted in Mr. Hayes' letter to you as an inspiration, and it's just a typical, there are many others that we could have looked at, with the design, you notice both the proportion of glass to solid wall is greatly in excess of the percentages in the guidebook. The shape of most of the windows is very tall and elongated, many going from floor to ceiling. The material of the windows is steel, a style of window associated with mid-20th century industrial buildings. The window operation style does not look like the typical double-hung window.
Keep going.
There are several very large areas of double-height window walls. All of these features are out of sync with its neighbors, and the shingle style thus non-compliant. Let's go on to the next. The most divergent aspect, as noted by the board member, Mr. Broadleaf, is the roofscape. The guidebook rightly places a large emphasis on the design of the roof. Page 17, rambling, informal appearance through use of steeply pitched gable and gambrel roofs with wide overhanging eaves, deliberately recalled English and early Dutch precedents, a complex system of multi-planed gable, jerkinhead, or gambrel roofs, etc. We can again look at the Isaac Bell House as an example, as an archetype. Pardon?
10 seconds.
You can see this building, the proposed building, has a very flat horizontal cornice that drives straight across. It's very unlike...
Your presentation, I'm going to let you know right now, you finally are starting to speak about architecture and the impacts and design.
Just wait.
You're getting there. You're finally, we're doing something other than speaking about size. And I appreciate the testimony information you're giving to us. I think it's very, it's very informative. What I'm starting to see now is that possibly this is an application that maybe we need to have a special meeting on. Because it really needs the type of attention that's necessary for us to focus on what it is and what our impact is, especially as it relates to design. We're finally having that conversation about design. The applicant had questions about how to make it a little bit more favorable, a little bit more in keeping, and probably can grab some information from this. But also on top of that, I think we as a board need to receive third-party information. And this is just one person, and I'll see if the board feels that they agree with this, to help find better ways of using desired space in a more conforming manner. And If
I respond for a second?
What's your response?
I just would say, for whatever it's worth, and I understand the rules are the rules, but I did address exactly what you're saying in the rest of my comments. in ways that I thought were trying to be proactive. Having sat in your seat, I know the kind of difficulties that applicants have. So I tried to be proactive and responsive, but it's up to you.
Okay, I want to have a conversation with council because I really think this desires something outside of just a special meeting. And this is not foreign to any governmental procedure where we isolate this particular application because it is important and it is an important location to have and create an opportunity for us to meet, post, properly post and advertise, and have a special date to present this properly. I'm giving you the ample opportunity and time, as long as you can hold to the conversation as it pertains to our jurisdiction. I think this board would be happy to hear more of that, but we would also like the opportunity to have someone that doesn't have any skin in the game. And that's been helpful in the past for us, and I think in this particular application, it may be helpful for the importance of this application. Board members, what do you feel? Jeff?
I surely would like to hear all sides. I think we're starting down a path. I think John opened up the door to possible changes, and you wanted input, so I think this is a way of getting at that.
Susan?
Well, I thought this was really helpful. I honestly, how much longer would it have taken you?
I'm on page 3 of 5.5.
Stop them.
I personally would prefer that we just finish this right now and not put it off to some other time in the distant future, but that's me.
Kristen?
I think it's helpful, but I think that you set a time limit and you back down on it or keep it.
So I back down or I keep it.
Well,
I appreciate that.
Well, the two aren't inseparable. I mean, the gentleman he's halfway through, he's come from New York. That doesn't preclude us from still having a separate meeting.
I think it better prepares us all. And I think it puts a better setting. It's not 9 o'clock at night or 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night where maybe tempers could be flared and attitudes could, after a long work day. I think it'd be best that we focus specifically to this application. And I think it would be a more fair process and procedure if we will all agree to it, correct? Something I'll converse with our council. Our council will converse with the applicants and those that are all parties and see if that's something we can set up. And in the meantime, also, I think we need to have an inner conversation with, again, someone with no skin in the game to have a deeper look at this particular parcel. We understand that there's a specific style that the applicant probably was just thinking, but maybe better ways to demonstrate that and display that in a manner that they still can have all of the useful space they're looking for, which, whatever that means. But what's allowable under the code, but at the same time designing a house which is more in keeping with the location of this on site. So we will have to get back. That's where I am with that right now. And I think that's fair for everyone. I would imagine everyone would agree with that. Applicant?
The sooner the better.
Okay. I'll discuss that with the council as soon as we can obviously present that, provide the opportunity, a day and time, a venue, and post and mail that, properly post that so that we have the meeting regulations comply.
Is it possible to have at least your report submitted to the file in a written fashion?
I'm sure you want to present it in person, but I'm sure you would want to add to your presentation.
I'd like to see it. He has it now. I'd like to be able to prepare for it. I gave Mr. Bragg, please, if there's anything other than...
I'm asking a question. I was looking for an answer. So can I get an answer from the person I asked the question to? Would you like to present it and make it as part of the file, or would you personally like to present the application, your information?
I think it's better if I can present it myself in person. I think that would be okay, but I think it would... I mean, I've heard stuff tonight that's caused me to modify what my remarks were. So I don't think that it would be relevant if I gave you what I started with tonight. So, I mean, I think that the conversation's been very interesting and informative to me, and it changed some of my thoughts on how to address my view of the house. So I think if it were done in person, now, I'd be happy to leave you with the draft, but I'd rather just retype it and get it
Okay.
right and maybe present it next time.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Can we
Excellent.
get that, since it just has to be retyped in advance?
Okay, and I'm leading that way. Because we all have this habit of giving stuff the day of the meeting, not giving people the opportunity to review and look at it, maybe we could have this prior to whatever date and time that the next meeting will be scheduled?
Are we going to have changes in this building, do you think? I mean, or if there are...
I'm going to readdress the applicant in a few to see if that's the case. And again, that will be a requirement, a request of this board. If there are any changes in the design of this, that it be put into the file prior to giving all parties the opportunity to review. It's really unfair for us to look at the night of the meeting.
Yeah, you also have to realize that when we go out and try to make changes to mollify, and mollify is the appropriate thing here, the objectives, and to try to work with the board, okay? An architectural firm with such a significant project can't turn those around quickly. Having said that, having said all of that, and remembering that this board itself adjourned the last meeting on its own motion, I will certainly endeavor to make changes, if any, available to the board as soon as possible before the next meeting. Of course, I need to know, you're going to have to speak to Mr. Robinson and the clerk, et cetera, about when that meeting will take place.
Understood. We would ask that you make best efforts. It could impact.
Absolutely.
It could impact how we react to receiving
Absolutely.
information late in
Absolutely.
the process.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Any further public comment? Anything further of the board? So at this time, we're going to applicant from the applicant, sir. At this point in this time, anything further you want to add, or you would like to wait till we figure the date and time and be advised of that period where you can either represent or...
The only thing I would request is that it happen as quickly as possible.
Okay.
That's all.
All right. And you're willing to adjourn the application to do so?
There's been a request, as long as the board notes the following, there's been a request by the opposition to adjourn the application as well, and the last application was made sua sponte on the board's application.
I think we asked the same question. Would you like to adjourn? That's,
No,
if I was chairman-
I'm just making my record.
I'm just
The
advising.
application.
If I chair the meeting, I've asked you if you would like to.
Yes, I understand that, but I want to make the record clear that the objectants were requesting an adjournment as well, and that the last request for an adjournment came not from me, but was done on sua sponte, which means on your own motion, by the board. And having said that, yes, we have no problem with adjourning the matter, yes.
With that noted, applicants request to adjourn. Please.
I make a motion that we adjourn the application of
Did we approve the
SH
applicant's
20...
request to adjourn? Did we approve the applicant's request?
We approve the applicant SH2 for LLC at 24 Gin Lane and SH28 LLC 28 Gin Lane request to adjourn to our next, to a further meeting.
I second the motion.
All in favor? Aye. What's remaining on our agenda are the minutes from April 24th. Do you recall if those were actually approved prior? You don't know, because I have a feeling they were.
I saw that.
They were. right?
No, actually, I don't know. Oh, yeah, they must have been.
Yeah.
I wasn't here at the last meeting.
Okay, so May 8th, I know. Who do you know by any chance who was present at our May 8th meeting?
I was, but I can't remember.
Yes, because I have the minutes here. Where are they?
Okay. 24th, I believe, were already approved.
May 8th was... Susan, Brian, Christina.
The three of you.
Yeah, so there's
Okay.
only two.
Were you the three of you? Well, it's only two of you, so we can't vote on that. So what's left is to adjourn this evening's meeting. Motion to adjourn.
I make a
I'm sorry,
motion.
motion to close the meeting for this evening.
I make a motion that we close this meeting of the Board of Architecture Review and Historic Preservation on... Thank you. What is the date? I'm completely...
The 22nd of May.
Sorry, we procedurally just have to finish up. If you give us a second. Motion to close this
Well, I'm
evening's
adjourning
meeting.
right now.
We're closing the meeting of May, closing the meeting for May 22nd, 2017. It's been moved.
I second the
It's been
motion.
moved and second. All in favor? Aye. Good night.